Chapter 368. Burning Books and Hiding Emperors. Chu Kuangren muttered with a mocking look on his face. Unknown lands? In my opinion, they should change their name to the Shameless Lands. Emperors were the pinnacle of cultivation, and the birth of every emperor was accompanied by endless glory. Their deeds should have been passed down to the world, revered by future generations, and pointed out the direction of cultivation for future generations. However, these so-called unknown lands had sealed away the glory of the emperors for their own selfish desires, causing future cultivators to only know about emperors, but not what it meant to be an emperor. It was the heavenly Tao's shackles that no one could become an emperor during the era of Dharma's end. By burning books and hiding emperors, the unknown lands had created a cage for future cultivators. The future generations were trapped in this cage, unable to see the glory of an emperor, not knowing what an emperor could do, and not knowing how to become an emperor. The Shameless Lands? That's a good name. The divine predictor was stunned for a moment before he laughed out loud. He looked at Chu Kuangren with a strange look in his eyes. Even in the era of great battles, it's still extremely difficult to become an emperor. However, the unknown lands have the emperor's inheritance in their hands, so an emperor should be born from them. But young friend Chu, you're an exception. I hope to see you slap the faces of the unknown lands. Let them know that even if they burn their books and hide their emperors, and make everyone ignorant of them, there are still people who can break out of their cage and become emperors. The divine predictor was the best fortune teller of the current generation. He had long predicted that the chance of becoming an emperor would be firmly controlled by the unknown lands in this era of great battles, but now, an unfathomable anomaly had appeared. Things were developing in an unexpected direction. This made the divine predictor very interested. He himself did not have a good impression of the unknown lands, so naturally, he was happy to see this happen. With me, Chu Kuangren, in this world, who would dare to become an emperor? Chu Kuangren laughed and his figure turned into a stream of light, disappearing into the distance as he flew towards the Empyrean Peak. Black Warrior Domain, Empyrean Peak. After the Empyrean walker Ling Xiao of the Nine Cloud Rapture set up an arena here, this place became a gathering place. Countless sky prides came from all directions. Even the sages were paying close attention to this place. The Empyrean Peak was filled with people. At the peak of the mountain, there was a person standing proudly. This person's black hair draped over his shoulders, and his figure was straight. He held a black spear in his hand, and it was as if he and the spear had fused into one. An incomparably sharp aura circulated around this person, as if it could pierce through the sky. He was the Empyrean walker who had set up the arena, the Empyrean walker from the nine-cloud heaven of the unknown lands. Ling Xiao. Its name was Soaring Firmament. Its spear was called Soaring Firmament, and its aura was as if it wanted to soar above the nine heavens. This person is Ling Xiao. He is indeed extraordinary. I heard that he has been in the world for 3 months, but the number of geniuses who have been defeated by him is in the double digits. His battle strength is even more terrifying than ordinary sages. Are all Empyrean walkers this insane? I really don't know how those so-called unknown lands nurtured them. It's too unbelievable. All this while, we thought that the most powerful forces were the sage orthodoxies. Who would have thought that there were so many so-called unknown places hidden in this world? Around the Empyrean Peak, countless people had gathered. Looking at Ling Xiao on the peak, they could not help but discuss among themselves. At that moment, a ray of green sword gleam flew through the sea of clouds and stopped before Ling Xiao. It transformed into a young man dressed in green, surrounded by fine strands of sword qi. The man stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly, "So you're the one who set up the arena here and challenged all the Empyrean walkers?" "That's right, it's me." Ling Xiao grinned at the man in green before him and said, "With such sword qi, if I'm not mistaken, you're Li Fuping, the Empyrean walker from the Dark Moon Tower. Am I right?" "You have a good eye," Li Fuping said calmly, admitting that the man was right. The long sword at his waist was unsheathed with a clang, and a strand of sword qi flew past Ling Xiao. He said, "Then let's fight." "Don't be hasty. It's just the two of us. It's not fun enough." Ling Xiao laughed. As soon as he finished speaking, a giggle came from the distant sky. A woman in red leaped into the air. Her beautiful and charming face attracted the hearts of many male cultivators present. It's her, Feng Yarao. She's the Empyrean walker from the Thousand Flower Valley. She's here too. It's not just Feng Yarao. After Feng Yarao appeared, there seemed to be a flash of starlight in the sky. A ray of sword gleam flew over and turned into a young man in black. His sword chi was extremely mysterious, not much weaker than Li Fuping's. The ground shook. A burly man walked up the Empyrean peak with a majestic gait. Every step he took caused the ground to shake. His aura was majestic. Oh, Yi Xen from the Big Dipper Palace and Guishan from the Immovable Palace. Ling Xiao read out their names one by one. Another figure leaped into the air. His entire body was filled with a domineering and scorching battle intent as he stared straight at Ling Xiao. Zhan Long from the Battle Cloud Realm. How have you been? Ling Xiao said calmly. Now that 4 Empyrean walkers had arrived, the surrounding audience was extremely excited. They started discussing excitedly. 6. There are 6 Empyrean walkers here now. If they were to fight, I wonder how intense it would be. According to my observation, the Empyrean walkers have at least the combat strength of a sage. They're very terrifying. Who else? Who else is coming? Although most of the Empyrean walkers were not sages, they possessed combat strength that was on par with sages. Moreover, Empyrean walkers had been in the limelight recently and had become the hottest topic in Firmament Star. Hence, the scene before them could be described as the grandest event in the world. Buzz. Ripples appeared in the void. A young man in white walked out of the void. This young man's aura was like the clouds in the sky, ethereal and unpredictable. Oh, here comes another tough one. Ling Xiao looked at him. Sir, please tell me your name. Shui Jing from Ethereal Rapture. The young man in white, Shui Jing, smiled faintly. Oh, so you're an Empyrean walker from Ethereal Rapture. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. At this moment, there was a sudden flash of golden light in the distant sky. Amidst the golden light, a carriage flew over. Everywhere it went, a road made of golden bricks appeared in the void. It was glorious and grand. A road made of golden bricks. Someone from the Gold family is here. Ling Xiao looked at the carriage and said, It's the Empyrean walker from the Gold family, Jin Bujua. A deep voice came from within the carriage. A man wearing a robe made of golden silk, a golden belt, a golden crown, a golden ring on his finger, and a golden longsword hung on his waist walked out. The crowd could only feel the dazzling golden light before them. How can I miss out on the Empyrean Walker's challenge? A young man in gray came over. His body exuded a strange gray aura. Everywhere he went, the plants withered and died. Looking at him, the crowd frowned. They instinctively felt repulsed. Which Empyrean Walker is this? TSK, this aura, he's definitely from the Sacred Palace of Death. All the Empyrean walkers took turns to enter the arena. Each of them had an extraordinary aura. The surrounding crowd was extremely excited to see this. Most of the people are here. Let's see who's the #1 sky pride in this world. Ling Xiao laughed. With his black spear in hand, his spirit soared. As soon as he said that, #1? Who else could it be other than me? An indifferent voice came from the clouds. Following that, a loud rumble was heard. It was as if something was coming at them from the sky. A magnificent ancient sword descended from the sky and landed right in the middle of the crowd. Majestic sword chi swept out from the blade of the sword, sending the Empyrean walkers flying 1,000 feet away from the force of the sword chi. A white-robed figure descended and landed in front of the crowd. The crowd's emotions reached its peak at that moment. He's here, Chu Kuangren is here. Chapter 369. The best in the world? Who else could it be other than me? Chu Kuangren's arrogant words were accompanied by the beautiful ancient sword. The sword chi that swept out was like a flood, and the Empyrean walkers were pushed back hundreds of meters. Countless spectators looked at Chu Kuangren with fanaticism and admiration. To them, Chu Kuangren's prestige was much greater than the Empyrean walkers who had only recently risen to fame. He's here, he's here. Chu Kuangren is here. F***ck me, I knew he'd be part of a grand event like this. Why don't these Empyrean walkers take a look at whose era it is now? When Chu Kuangren killed a sage, God knows where these Empyrean walkers were. How can these people compare to him? You can't say that. Chu Kuangren may be powerful, but these Empyrean walkers are not to be underestimated either. Tsk, don't you guys forget that some of these Empyrean walkers were defeated by Chu Kuangren before. The crowd was in an uproar as they discussed among themselves. Meanwhile, at the Empyrean peak, the group of Empyrean walkers looked at Chu Kuangren with fear in their eyes. Since he's here too. I thought he wouldn't come since Ling Xiao was challenging the Empyrean walkers. I didn't expect him to come anyway. Yi Exin, Zhan Long, and the other Empyrean walkers who had been defeated by Chu Kuangren before could not help but smile bitterly. Compared to the other Empyrean walkers, they had fought Chu Kuangren before, so they were more aware of his incredible combat strength. This entrance, this extravagance, he must have quite a background. Ling Xiao held his spear and looked at Chu Kuangren, who was hundreds of meters away with a burning battle intent on his face. You must be Chu Kuangren, right? That's right. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation and scanned through the Empyrean walkers at the scene, quickly analyzing each and every one of their cultivation levels. Soon, his gaze landed on Ethereal Rapture's Empyrean walker, Shuijing, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. Senior Predictor is right. The Empyrean walkers of Ethereal Rapture are here too, Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Finding Shuijing and obtaining the Celestial Chalcedony from Ethereal Rapture was his main purpose of this trip. This challenge was just a side mission. After hearing about the burning of books and hiding of emperors, he did not have a good impression of the unknown lands. These unknown lands wanted to use the Empyrean walkers to make a name for themselves and fight for luck. He would not let them have their way. As long as he didn't lose, he would be able to become a martial monarch. What a great Chu Kuangren! #1 in the world? Who else could it be other than you? Then let me tell you, besides you, there is also my gold noble family's Jin Bujue. Jin Bujue stepped forwards and loudly said. A dense Taoist rhyme spread from his body and crushed towards Chu Kuangren. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren just stood where he was, unbothered by the Taoist rhyme that was sweeping towards him. He lifted his eyes to look at Jin Bujue, and he could not help but squint his eyes at the sight of Jin Bujue's golden radiance. Yo, whose family's gold has turned into a spirit? His words made everyone's lips curl up. Jin Bujue's glittering appearance was indeed like gold that had turned into a spirit. However, because the other party was an Empyrean walker from the Gold family clan, they were too embarrassed to say it out loud. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to voice out their thoughts the moment he opened his mouth. Upon hearing Chu Kuangren's words, Jin Bujue snorted. Gold is the most beautiful thing in this world. How can people like you understand its beauty? As soon as he finished speaking, the golden longsword at his waist was unsheathed with a clang. Without another word, he charged towards Chu Kuangren and slashed at him. Chu Kuangren, take this. As soon as the sword was unleashed, a majestic golden sword chi emanated with an incredibly dense and sharp aura. This sword technique is already at the level of a sage. Feng Yaorao, who was not far away from Chu Kuangren, said solemnly. Jin Bujue's strength was definitely one of the top among the Empyrean walkers. Just a casual strike from his sword alone had such power. The level of a sage? Did it mean that any random Sky Pride now had the combat strength of a sage? The sages who were once high and mighty had now become a unit of measurement? Chu Kuangren could not help but complain when he heard Feng Yaorao's words. Facing Jin Bujue's incoming sword technique, Chu Kuangren calmly raised his hand and a majestic amount of earth chi gathered at the center of his palm. The power of the human mountain was unleashed. When the two energies collided, the majestic golden sword ray shattered on the spot while Jin Bujue himself was sent flying dozens of feet away. What a powerful attack! Jin Bujue was secretly shocked. Chu Kuangren glanced at his opponent. He was surprised that he was unscathed after receiving the impact of the human mountain's power. This was something that most sages would find difficult to achieve. Is it that golden robe? Chu Kuangren noticed that the golden robe that his opponent was wearing had a mysterious Taoist rhyme that blocked all of his palm chi attacks. It was obvious that it was a sage weapon of a high grade. Heh, looks like this shiny golden robe of yours isn't completely useless after all. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Upon hearing that, Jin Bujue's aura rose again and the golden longsword in his hand shone with a dazzling golden light. Take this. An even more powerful sword chi was unleashed like a golden torrent. Wherever the sword chi went, the void rumbled and the ground cracked. Raging God's fist. Chu Kuangren still did not draw his sword. Instead, he raised his hand and unleashed a punch. An extremely violent black fist that was burning with rage was unleashed, instantly shattering the golden sword chi. It then landed on Jin Bujue's body and sent him flying hundreds of feet away. Although he was protected by the golden robe, his face still turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. That's an emperor technique. You really do have an emperor technique, Jin Bujue said. The other Empyrean walkers were not surprised. Rumor had it that Chu Kuangren possessed unparalleled combat strength. They would not believe it if he did not have an emperor-level technique or two. Alright then, let's do it again. Let's see if your emperor technique is better or the Golden Family's emperor technique is better, Jin Bujue said loudly. A dazzling golden light erupted from his body, and within that light, a golden mountain vaguely appeared. This is a little troublesome. At that moment, Chu Kuangren suddenly spoke. Jin Bujue grinned. So you're aware of trouble and fear in the face of my Golden Family's emperor technique? You've misunderstood. Chu Kuangren shook his head. He then looked around at Feng Yaorao, Ling Xiao Exin, and the other Empyrean walkers and said, Didn't you guys want to fight in the arena? Why aren't you guys fighting? Everyone was stunned when they heard him. How are we supposed to fight? You and Jin Bujue haven't won yet. Ling Xiao was puzzled. Chu Kuangren sighed. Sigh, that's why I said it's a little troublesome. It's a waste of time to fight them one by one. Everyone understood what Chu Kuangren meant. At the same time, Ling Xiao and the other Empyrean walkers were enraged. They saw that Chu Kuangren and Jin Bujue were fighting, so they did not intervene. They wanted the two to have a fair fight. Fighting in the arena was supposed to be a one-on-one fight, right? Yet Chu Kuangren wanted to fight them alone. He was not taking the Empyrean walkers seriously at all. Chu Kuangren, don't be too arrogant. You don't even know if you can win against me, yet you want to fight them alone, Jin Bujue said angrily. Chapter 370. Who gave you the wrong impression that I can't defeat you? Chu Kuangren glanced at Jin Bujue. With a lift of his arm, a majestic spiritual power gathered once again, and an even more violent black fist attack was launched. Jin Bujue sensed that this attack was far more powerful than before. With a roar, a golden mountain formed above his head, and he launched it. The fist and mountain collided, and the void exploded. The golden mountain was sent flying by the black fist attack and landed on Jin Bujue's body. Jin Bujue was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, heavily injured. That punch shocked every Empyrean walker at the scene. What a terrifying fist attack. This guy's combat strength has reached such a level. Ling Xiao, Li Fuping and the others were shocked. Compared to their shock, Zhan Long, Feng Yaorao, Guisan, and Yi Exin, who had fought against Chu Kuangren before, did not feel much. Back then, Chu Kuangren had defeated them even though he was outnumbered. What about you guys? Don't even think about fighting me one-on-one. Come at me together. Don't worry, it's not embarrassing to fight me together, Chu Kuangren said to Ling Xiao and the others. When they heard what he said, their expressions changed. They wanted to retort, but they did not know what to say. The combat strength that Chu Kuangren had displayed was not something that any of them could handle alone. Only by fighting him together would they have a chance of winning. However, they could not get over their own doubts. After all, they were Empyrean walkers, top-notch sky prides nurtured by their respective orthodoxies. They shouldered the mission of making their orthodoxies famous, so they were undoubtedly full of confidence and pride. However, Chu Kuangren had shattered their confidence with his absolute strength. If they were to fight him together, they would have to abandon their pride. How could they accept that? Go go. Don't be a coward. That's right. You guys are fighting Chu Kuangren. It won't be embarrassing even if a whole group of you come at me, let alone just a few of you. Empyrean walkers, don't hesitate anymore. The person standing before you is someone who can fight a few sages or even great sages. He can turn the deep-sea scaled tribe upside down. That's right. It won't be embarrassing if all of you come at him together. If you accidentally win against him, you will truly become famous under the heavens, and everyone will know about you. Some of the onlookers in the crowd were eager to watch the drama unfold, so they started to encourage the Empyrean walkers to attack Chu Kuangren together. Upon hearing those words, Ling Xiao and the others felt their Dao hearts being tormented. To win or to save face? Let's attack together. At this moment, Zhan Long suddenly roared, whether it's a one-on-one fight or a group brawl, as long as we can beat him, anything is fine. Only by defeating him will we have a chance to become a martial emperor. Otherwise, we will forever be suppressed by him. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone finally made up their minds. What was the use of face? Becoming a martial emperor was their ultimate goal. As long as they could become martial emperors, ganging up on one person was nothing. Attack! Chu Kuangren, let us have a go at you. Chu Kuangren let out a gratified smile as he watched the Empyrean walkers rush forward. That's right. This is the only way to continue playing. All of a sudden, a powerful surge of qi erupted from his body, and a golden Buddhist light appeared around his body, turning him into a golden ancient Buddha. The ancient Buddha unleashed a palm attack, and the majestic force smashed towards Zhan Long. His opponent roared and retaliated with a punch of his own. When the fist and palm collided, the entire Empyrean peak shook violently. Chu Kuangren remained unmoved while Zhan Long was sent flying dozens of feet away, his arms trembling nonstop. This guy is still as strong as ever. Zhan Long gritted his teeth and said. At this time, the other Empyrean walkers had already closed in on Chu Kuangren. Sword Qi, Saber Rays, Death Qi, and other energy fluctuations spread out and blasted towards Chu Kuangren from all directions with Taoist rhymes. The overpowering force almost caused the void to distort, and the sonic booms were like a tidal wave. The entire Empyrean peak started to crumble. 8 celestial demonic chords, heavenly and earthly reverberation. A guqin appeared in Chu Kuangren's hand. As he plucked the strings with his 10 fingers, terrifying guqin music Taoist rhymes resonated with the heavens and earth with him at the center. Sword Qi, Death Qi, Spear Rays, and other energy attacks were all destroyed by the guqin music. The few people who were attacking Chu Kuangren were also pushed back by the impact. Chu Kuangren, who was at the center of the collision, suffered the most and the most terrifying impact. Under such an impact, even a saint would definitely not be able to withstand it. However, the other party stood proudly, and many white lotuses condensed around him, blocking all the impact. It was the sage ruler technique, the white lotus light of purification. Sword Qi transformation. 4 surges of Sword Qi suddenly shot out from Chu Kuangren's body and turned into 4 Sword Qi clones. They then surrounded Zhan Long, Feng Yaorao, Yi Exin, and Guisan, the 4 Empyrean walkers. I've seen what the 4 of you are capable of. You guys can play with these clones for now. Chu Kuangren said calmly. He then looked at Ling Xiao, Li Fuping, and the other 2 and gestured with his finger. You guys, attack me to your heart's content. Before we continue, I have a question. Do you know the gluttonous devouring technique? The gray-robed young man asked. He was the Empyrean walker of the sacred palace of death, Guwuchou. The gluttonous devouring technique. Oh, right, I almost forgot. I obtained this gluttonous devouring technique from a guy called the Black Light Sage. I think he's a protector of your sacred palace of death. Chu Kuangren said in realization. A few years ago, when he first entered the realm, he once went to the secret realm of the luminous moon where the Black Light Sage was being suppressed. That was where he obtained the gluttonous devouring technique from. Besides, the Black Light Sage was also a member of the Sacred Palace of Death. So you obtained the gluttonous devouring technique from the Black Light Sage. I hope you'll return it to the Sacred Palace of Death after this battle. Gue Wucho said. What if I don't? Then you'll be making the Sacred Palace of Death your enemy. Gue Wucho said coldly. Heh, I've made many enemies along the way. You won't make a difference. Chu Kuangren did not care. We'll talk about your matters later. Let's fight first. Ling Xiao let out a low growl and thrust his spear forward. An overbearing Taoist rhyme surrounded the spear like a dragon out of the sea. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren's descendant self-sword that was originally stuck in the ground suddenly rose into the air. He held it in his hand and swung it forward with a loud clang. The sword and spear clashed, and a series of shockwaves swept across the place. Clang, 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 clang. The sword and spear collided rapidly. Both sword and spear techniques were mixed with a large amount of spiritual power and Taoist rhyme. Each of their attacks contained a terrifying power that could split mountains and split the earth. It was just a clash between the sword and spear, but the resulting impact had caused half of the mountain beneath their feet to collapse. Buzz. At that moment, a sword ray descended from above Chu Kuangren's head. That sword ray was shaped like a crescent moon, sharp and unstoppable. Chu Kuangren shook the descendant self-sword in his hand and a majestic sword chi poured out, temporarily forcing Ling Xiao to retreat. Following that, he swung his sword at the sword ray above his head. An overbearing and unstoppable purple sword ray tore through the sword ray with a majestic and unstoppable momentum and headed towards the Empyrean walker, Li Fuping. Although they were both swordsmen, the sword-based Taoist rhyme within Chu Kuangren's sword chi made Li Fuping's heart palpitate. Chapter 371. Silver Light Sword Art. Li Fuping slashed out with her sword, and the bright sword light slashed out again. He had to unleash 2 sword strikes in a row to block the sword ray that Chu Kuangren had casually unleashed. His heart could not help but sink. We're both sword cultivators, but there's such a big gap between us. Is this the power of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart? Compared to it, my mystic moonsword body is still inferior. Li Fuping thought to herself as a hint of unwillingness flashed through her eyes. The exquisite 9 orifices sword heart was a supreme constitution for the way of the sword. In terms of cultivating the way of the sword, it possessed a talent that no other sword cultivator could hope to attain. Li Fuping was clear about this, but she couldn't help but feel indignant. Come, let's continue, Chu Kuangren said. Following that, a mysterious Taoist rhyme appeared on his body and transformed into a sword of the heavenly way above his head. Sword chi shuttled back and forth beneath his feet and transformed into a sword chi green lotus. It was the vision of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. As soon as the Taoist physique transformation appeared, Chu Kuangren's combat strength was boosted. When the 4 Empyrean walkers saw this, their expressions turned solemn. Looks like we also have to use our trump cards. 9 Heaven's Imperial Court. Soaring Cloud Spear let out a roar. Accompanied by a terrifying Taoist rhyme, golden light suddenly condensed behind Ling Xiao, turning into an incomparably glorious palace. This was the 9th Cloud's vision cultivation method. It was also an emperor technique. Once this emperor technique was executed, Ling Xiao's Taoist rhyme instantly skyrocketed under the support of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. Surging spiritual power poured out continuously. Deathwell. Gue Wucho let out a cold snort as his Taoist rhymes circulated and condensed into a well above his head. A large amount of gray deathly chi gushed out from the well. At this moment, Gue Wucho seemed to have transformed into the Grim Reaper who reaped lives, emitting an aura of extreme yin and evil. See rising bright moon. Li Fuping took a step forward, and a large amount of sword chi surged out of his body. The sword chi interweaved and actually formed an ocean, and at the end of the ocean of sword chi, a bright moon slowly rose. Mystic moon sword body phenomenon, bright moon rising from the sea. World divine concealment. On the other side, ethereal rapture's Empyrean walker, Shuizheng, had also activated some sort of technique. His aura was becoming increasingly ethereal and unpredictable. It was even to the extent that in everyone's eyes, Xuejing seemed as if he would vanish into thin air at any moment, and he actually seemed illusory. However, in the eyes of those with sharp senses, the current Xuejing was extremely terrifying. His aura was practically non-existent, which made his attacks unpredictable and hard to detect. This was extremely terrifying in battle. 4 great Empyrean walkers with 4 different Taoist rhymes surrounded Chu Kuangren from 4 different directions. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren smiled. "So this is your trump card, huh? Interesting. Come, make your move." Fight. Ling Xiao was the first to make a move. The spear in his hand struck out, and the 9 Heavens Imperial Court's avatar shone with a myriad of rays of golden light, which were added to the spear. Flood Dragon breaks the seas. An incomparably majestic spear light burst out like a tornado. Chu Kuangren was not afraid in the face of the spear ray that was the first to erupt. With a sweep of the long sword in his hand, a sword chi pierced through the air and shattered the spear ray. At this moment, a gust of cold air swept out from behind him. It was the sacred palace of Death's Grey Wucho. He pointed out a finger that was wrapped in an incredibly terrifying aura of death. Wherever it went, the life force of every living thing was extinguished. Finger of despair. With a finger, one's life and death were no longer in one's hands. That was the sacred palace of Death's strongest technique. It was a powerful emperor technique. Chu Kuangren sensed the finger attack, so he too pointed out a finger. A mysterious surge of Taoist rhyme gushed out from the tip of his finger and instantly condensed into a pitch-black giant finger in the void. Heart-piercing finger. Heart-piercing finger, Taoist heart-piercing finger. When the 2 finger energies collided, Chu Kuangren's body remained unmoved. He took the impact of the aura of death head-on and remained unscathed. On the other hand, Gui Wucho's Taoist core was affected by the heart-piercing finger's Taoist rhyme. His body could not help but stiffen, and when the finger energy landed on him, he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura became weak. The difference in their foundation strength was instantly made clear. Just when Chu Kuangren repelled Gui Wucho, he suddenly sensed a surge of qi approaching him silently. White lotus light of purification. He subconsciously activated his defensive technique. All he saw was an invisible surge of qi shattering the white lotuses and approaching him with an incredibly powerful force. Chu Kuangren swung his sword horizontally and shattered that surge of energy qi. A look of interest appeared on his face. Oh, what an interesting technique to be able to launch an attack without making a sound. I almost fell for it. Not far away, Xuejing's figure flickered in and out of existence as if he would vanish at any moment. He chuckled. The ethereal Enigma Realm's attack is hard to detect. Brother Chu, please be careful. Originally, if it was a one-on-one battle, it would not be difficult for Chu Kuangren to detect the ethereal Enigma Realm's attack with all his attention on him. However, he had to fight a few Empyrean walkers at the same time, so he could not focus all his attention on Xuejing. This greatly increased the threat that Xuejing's ethereal Enigma Realm posed to Chu Kuangren. Interesting. Chu Kuangren revealed a look of interest. You guys have finally piqued my interest in battling. I'd like to see just how arrogant you can be. Li Fuping snorted coldly as the long sword in his hand instantly moved. Surges of sword qi appeared out of thin air and shot out one after another along with the bright moonlight. They tore through the void and slashed towards Chu Kuangren. Shatter! With a soft shout, Chu Kuangren lifted his hand and shattered the sword qi. Then, he unleashed a punch towards Li Fuping's transformation. The violent palm qi caused Li Fuping's transformation to tremble, and cracks began to appear on the bright moonlight. Li Fuping channeled her spiritual power and stabilized the transformation's power. Meanwhile, Gui Wucho, who was sent flying by Chu Kuangren not far away, suddenly emitted a powerful surge of life force. His originally injured body rapidly recovered under this surge of life force and returned to its peak state. Rebirth from the dead. This is the ultimate technique of my death Dao. Gui Wucho looked at Chu Kuangren and said proudly. Jin Bujue will not fall so easily. On the other side, Jin Bujue, who was previously sent flying by Chu Kuangren's punch, had also recovered 70 to 80% of his strength after consuming a medicinal pill. He came before Chu Kuangren and raised the golden longsword in his hand high up. Large amounts of Taoist rhymes circulated and intertwined to form the image of a giant golden mountain. Boom! At that moment, a violent energy fluctuation came from not far away. Chu Kuangren, you will definitely lose today. Zhan Long, Yi Xen, Guisan, and Feng Yaorao had already dealt with Chu Kuangren's sword chi clones and were now surrounding him. The 9 Empyrean walkers had blocked off all of Chu Kuangren's escape routes. 9 incredibly powerful auras filled the Empyrean peak, and in the middle of these auras was Chu Kuangren, who stood proudly. The surrounding spectators held their breaths as they watched the scene unfold before them. In this world, other than Chu Kuangren, there was no other Sky Pride who could be surrounded and attacked by 9 Empyrean walkers. You guys have pretty much used up all of your trump cards, but I haven't even used my full strength yet. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Then, an indescribable surge of energy that made all the Empyrean walkers' expressions changed gushed out from his body and slammed into the void like a tidal wave. Chapter 372. Boom! Boundless ferocious chi and battle intent gushed out from Chu Kuangren's body and formed into a pitch-black figure behind him. A battle roar reverberated in the void. The infallible tormented physique activate. At the same time, countless surges of Taoist rhymes circulated around Chu Kuangren's body. Sword Tao, Spear Tao, Buddhist Tao, 5 Ways Tao, these Taoist rhymes circulated and turned into a powerful transcendental strength. Transcendent coalescence Taoist physique activate. 3 supreme Taoist physiques were activated at the same time. The entire Empyrean peak exploded into countless pieces of rubble that flew everywhere. The Empyrean walkers were also forced to retreat. You guys have almost used up all your trump cards, but I'm just starting to use them, Chu Kuangren said calmly. He looked around before he looked at Zhan Long and unleashed a punch. Boundless ferocious chi and battle intent combined with the transcendental strength. Zhan Long's eyes narrowed as he roared and unleashed another punch. Sky Conqueror Fist, sky shattering. Violent spiritual power and Taoist rhymes erupted and turned into a giant black fist. However, the moment the two energies intertwined, Zhan Long's fist chi crumbled and he was blasted away. Zhan Long was sent flying by the punch and smashed into a mountain several thousand feet away. His aura instantly withered. Just one punch was enough to render Zhan Long powerless. Again! Chu Kuangren looked at the others. The moment he unleashed his attack, the others had already reacted and quickly channeled their spiritual power to attack. 9 Heavens Imperial Court, Torrential Spear. Finger of Despair. 7 Stars Touch. Lunar Horizon. 100 Generations of Glory. Ethereal Concealment Realm, Firmament Palm. Golden Mountain Seal. Mountain River Seal. The 8 Empyrean walkers activated their most powerful ultimate techniques one after another. The sky was filled with spear energy that rained down like a torrential downpour. The 7-star sword chi transformed into majestic sword shadows. The moon-like sword gleams filled the air, and the Taoist rhymes of the Guqin reverberated in the void. The silent palm chi swam through the void towards Chu Kuangren. The majestic golden light condensed into a golden mountain that shook the heavens and earth. Death chi and earth chi were equally powerful. These 8 surges of peerless energy that could shatter the heavens and the earth circulated and smashed towards Chu Kuangren from all directions. In the face of such a powerful attack, even a great sage would have a hard time fending it off. However, ferocious chi swirled around Chu Kuangren's body, and the divine ferocious avatar behind him let out a deafening roar. It swung its fists in all directions. Wave after wave of punches carried a strong gust of wind and struck out continuously. Loud rumbling sounds reverberated in the void, and all kinds of different Taoist rhymes intertwined in the void, dyeing the sky colorful and incomparably gorgeous, dazzling countless spectators. However, They could clearly feel the terrifying killing intent contained within that dazzling scene. Killing chi and battle will mixed with the power of the 10,000 techniques erupted continuously. The Sky Fiend technique was the same, and the 8 peerlessly tyrannical powers collided. An incomparably terrifying impact spread out, and the sea of clouds within a radius of 1,000 miles exploded continuously. The entire Sky Universe peak had already been reduced to ruins. Dust billowed, obscuring everyone's vision. The chaotic energy fluctuations blocked everyone's spiritual thoughts and senses. The few Empyrean walkers stared at the dust without blinking. Then, they saw a black figure floating within it. It was Chu Kuangren. He was still standing proudly, and his arrogance did not diminish. Under the joint attack of the 8 Empyrean walkers, his divine ferocious avatar might be powerful, but it was already damaged. The boiling ferocious chi could no longer maintain a stable form, and it looked like it was about to collapse. However, Chu Kuangren still stood where he was, unscathed. He had blocked the joint attack of 8 Empyrean walkers with just one avatar. Ling Xiao and the others were shocked by such unimaginable combat strength. Their eyes widened in disbelief. "Now it's my turn," Chu Kuangren said calmly. He held the lingering song in front of his chest and plucked the strings with all 10 fingers. The 7th movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, heavenly reverberation, was activated. With the support of the 10,000 techniques, this movement's power was even more terrifying. The heavens and earth resonated with it, causing the void to crack and the earth to tremble violently. Waves of Guqin music Taoist rhymes continued to spread. "Not good." Ling Zhao's expression changed. He activated the 9 Heavens Gate transformation behind him to fight against the Guqin music Taoist rhymes. However, under the impact of the Guqin music, his 9 Heavens Gate began to shake violently, and cracks began to appear on the Heavens Gate. With a loud bang, the Taoist rhymes exploded, and the dazzling palace collapsed on the spot. The 9 Heavens Gate transformation was broken. Ling Xiao suffered the backlash from his transformation and the impact of the Guqin music. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot and was smashed into a mountain like a cannonball. The others were not much better off. Li Fuping's rising moon above the sea transformation was also shattered. The sea and moon formed by the intertwining sword qi instantly crumbled. Gui Wuchou's dried well of death shattered on the spot and dissipated. Xue Zheng's illusory figure solidified under the Guqin music. Under the impact of the Guqin music Taoist rhymes, he broke away from his enigmatic world state. His face turned pale as he was blasted away like Ling Xiao. Feng Yaorao Yi Exen, Guisan, Jin Bujua. The impact of the Guqin music caused all the Empyrean walkers who were present to experience an unprecedented impact. One by one, they were sent flying backward. When the Guqin music dissipated, the entire Empyrean peak fell into dead silence. Chu Kuangren was the only one left standing in the ruins of the Empyrean peak. The other Empyrean walkers were all blasted away and laid on the ground. Their auras were extremely weak, and it seemed like they no longer had the strength to fight. Chu Kuangren had defeated 8 Empyrean walkers with just one heavenly reverberation. Including Zhan Long, who was blasted away earlier, the 9 Empyrean walkers who had gathered at the Empyrean peak were all defeated without exception. How can he be so powerful? Ling Xiao was in disbelief. They stared at Chu Kuangren, feeling that the person before them was not human but a monster. Which Sky Pride would have such combat strength? I'm afraid there's not a single Sky Pride in this world who can compete with him. With him around, who can become an emperor first? The other Empyrean walkers were also shocked. Many of the sages who were secretly observing the battle had their own thoughts as well. Once again, they were shocked by Chu Kuangren's combat strength. He won. He won. Chu Kuangren won. He's the best in this world. The divine predictor is right. Who is the best among the Sky Prides? Black Heaven has its own Kuangren, and Chu Kuangren is the best Sky Pride in this world. He's too powerful, the spectators exclaimed in shock. Many people looked at him with fanatical worship in their eyes. However, at that moment, A terrifying surge of Taoist rhymes suddenly erupted from afar. It intertwined in the void and formed into a heavenly honorable avatar that exuded a domineering and supreme aura. Chu Kuangren, if you want to be the best in this world, you'll have to ask my heavenly golden imperial physique first. A domineering voice echoed in the void. Then, the gigantic heavenly honorable avatar unleashed a punch at Chu Kuangren from afar. The fist force swept across the sky. Just the wind generated from the punch alone was enough to make everyone feel as if doomsday had arrived. Chapter 373. The incoming fist chi stunned Chu Kuangren for a moment. He then gathered his ferocious chi and unleashed a punch of his own. When the two violent energies collided, the void exploded with a boom. A windstorm swept up and sent the Empyrean walkers flying. Who is this? How can he possess such power? What did he just say? The heavenly golden imperial physique. The heavenly golden imperial physique that's ranked second among the 3,000 physiques. F*ck me, where is this sky pride from? The crowd gasped and looked towards the source of the fist chi. A young man stood on a mountain peak not far away. He was dressed in a long black robe, and his facial features were well defined. His body exuded an indescribably domineering aura. Everyone could not help but want to submit to him when they saw him. The black-robed young man took a step forward and traversed thousands of meters in the blink of an eye. He arrived above Chu Kuangren and looked down at him. Chu Kuangren, if you want to be the best in this world, you'll have to ask for my permission first. Chu Kuangren looked at him and activated his Eye of Revelation. Heavenly Golden Palace Empyrean Walker, Xiao Lintin, possesses the acquired Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique, cultivates the Emperor Scripture, Heavenly Golden 7 Steps, Emperor Techniques. This person's combat strength is comparable to a great sage. Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes at the feedback from the Eye of Revelation. The acquired Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique. Interesting. Not far away, Ling Xiao and the other Sky Prides looked at each other. The Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique. I can't believe such a peerless physique exists in this world. Which unknown lands did this person come from? Yexin, Zhanlong, and the others were puzzled. If I'm not mistaken, this person is from the Heavenly Golden Palace. At this time, Shuizheng took a deep breath and said, I heard from the elders in the Orthodoxy that the Heavenly Golden Palace is one of the few with the deepest heritage among the many unknown lands. In their history, they once produced a Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique that shocked an entire era. However, in order to become an emperor, the Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique followed a group of strong cultivators into the Misty Ocean, one of the 10 great forbidden areas. Since then, there has been no news of the Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique. In order to continue the glory of the Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique, the Heavenly Golden Palace has been researching this physique for tens of thousands of years in an attempt to acquire it. Now, it seems that they've succeeded. Upon hearing this, the few Empyrean walkers gasped. A supreme Taoist body was extremely rare, let alone a supreme Taoist body like the Heavenly Golden Imperial Body, which was the second most powerful supreme Taoist body. Apart from being bestowed by the heavens, it was not difficult to form such a body after birth. This was simply stealing the fortune of heaven and earth. This was an act of stealing the heavens. It was not just the Empyrean walkers who were shocked. The sages who were observing from the shadows were also shocked by the Heavenly Golden Palace's actions. I thought the Heavenly Golden Palace had been doing nothing for tens of thousands of years. I can't believe they actually succeeded. It's definitely very difficult to form such a physique after birth. Who knows how many resources have been consumed? Finally, there's someone who can go against Chu Kuangren. The saints were secretly communicating with their spiritual sense. They couldn't help but look forward to the upcoming battle. One possessed the Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique, while the other possessed 3 supreme Taoist physiques. If the two of them fought, who would come out on top? Chu Kuangren, since you've just fought a few small fries, I'll give you some time to recover your spiritual power before we fight to our heart's content. Xiao Linian stood with his hands behind his back and said proudly. Ling Xiao and the others could not help but twitch their mouths at his words. They looked at Xiao Lintian furiously. Small fries? How could they, Empyrean walkers, be called small fries? If not for Chu Kuangren's heavy injuries, they would have fought him even if they knew they were no match for Xiao Lintian. Heh, if they're small fries, then you're just a slightly fatter one too. Even if I have less than half of my spiritual power left, I can still make you kneel on the ground. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Humph, how arrogant and ignorant. Xiao Lintian snorted coldly. He then raised his hand and threw a punch at Chu Kuangren. A surge of golden fist strength erupted like a mighty torrent. It was one of the heavenly Golden Palace's emperor techniques, the divine golden fist. Moreover, Xiao Lintian planned to defeat Chu Kuangren in an absolute manner. Hence, he did not hold back and pushed his spiritual power to the limit. Even a great sage would have to be cautious when facing such a punch. Raging God's fist. Chu Kuangren threw out a punch as well. It was a punch against a punch. When the two surges of qi collided, Taoist rhymes swept out. Both of them stood still, but the ground around them had collapsed, forming a huge crater. You're the first person to remain unscathed under my punch. Chu Kuangren, you deserve my full strength to defeat you. Xiao Lintian's eyes revealed a hint of seriousness. A powerful aura erupted from his body, and his Taoist rhymes soared into the sky. The Taoist rhymes intertwined in the void and condensed into a heavenly honorable silhouette. It was the heavenly golden imperial physique's transformation, the heavenly honorable avatar. Chu Kuangren activated his 3 supreme Taoist physiques. Come on, let me see if your 3 supreme Taoist physiques are stronger than my heavenly honorable avatar. Xiao Lintian roared. He threw out a punch and performed the divine golden fist again. But this time, with the support of the celestial master's Dharma idol, his fist force had a supreme and domineering aura. The power of this punch was even more powerful. Chu Kuangren shook his head slightly. He placed the lingering song Guqin in front of him and plucked at its strings. All of a sudden, a silent Guqin Taoist rhyme erupted. Ripples appeared in the void. The final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, the grand note of desolation. The Guqin Taoist rhyme that the few Empyrean walkers had never seen before spread in the void and collided with Xiao Lintian's fist strength. The terrifying impact caused a 1,000-meter deep crack to appear in the ground, shocking everyone within a 1,000-kilometer radius. Meanwhile, Xiao Lintian's fist strength quickly disintegrated under the impact of the grand note of desolation, and the heavenly honorable avatar also exploded. Xiao Lintian spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. The heavenly golden imperial physique, which was ranked second among the 3,000 physiques, was destroyed by Chu Kuangren with just one Guqin sound. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Even the sages who were secretly observing were dumbfounded. How is this possible? How can the heavenly golden imperial physique be so weak? This doesn't make sense. This is the second-ranked supreme Taoist physique. Even if Chu Kuangren has 3 supreme Taoist physiques, none of them are stronger than the heavenly golden imperial physique. How is this possible? The gap is a little too big. The sages discussed among themselves in disbelief. The heavenly Golden Palace's sages, in particular, were even more shocked. After all, Xiao Lintian was the heavenly golden imperial physique that they had painstakingly cultivated. They were counting on him to make a name for their orthodoxy, become an emperor, and protect the heavenly golden imperial palace. However, the heavenly golden imperial physique that they had high hopes for was defeated by Chu Kuangren with just one Guqin sound. Even the other Empyrean walkers could hold their own against Chu Kuangren, so how could the stronger Xiao Lintian be so weak? He didn't even use his full strength when he battled us. Ling Xiao gulped, finding it hard to believe. Xiao Lintian, who was sent flying by a Guqin sound, looked at Chu Kuangren with an uncontrollable fear in his eyes. How can this be? How can this be? My heavenly golden imperial physique is invincible. How can I lose? And it's such a crushing defeat. Chapter 374. Chu Kuangren slowly walked toward Xiao Lintian and looked down at his opponent who was lying on the ground. he said, "The heavenly golden imperial physique is indeed extraordinary, but it's a pity that you're too weak." Indeed. Was the heavenly golden imperial physique weak? Not at all. As a supreme Taoist physique that was second only to the chaos physique, how weak could it be? It was one of the strongest physiques in history. Many emperors did not even have such a physique. However, did having a strong physique mean that one was strong? Not necessarily. Chu Kuangren had 3 supreme Taoist physiques, but the reason why he could defeat Xiao Lintian so easily was because of his foundation. He had the 6 supreme Taoist foundations. Although his physique was slightly weaker than Xiao Lintian's, it was still a piece of cake for him to defeat his opponent. Am I too weak? Am I too weak? Xiao Lintian murmured as his expression changed. As the Empyrean Walker of the Heavenly Golden Palace and the owner of the Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique, how could he be weak? However, if he was not weak, how could he be defeated by Chu Kuangren in one move? Xiao Lintian could not understand it no matter how hard he thought about it. His Taoist core suffered an unprecedented blow, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. "Chu Kuangren, shut up." At that moment, an angry voice came from Xiao Lintian's body. A ray of light shot out from his body and turned into a white-bearded old man in a yellow robe. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation. Sage ruler Zhangguang, the current palace lord of the Heavenly Golden Palace. A sage ruler, the palace lord of the Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique. The Heavenly Golden Palace really values the Heavenly Golden Imperial Physique. I can't believe they left a sage ruler's mark on him. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He could tell that this sage ruler Zhangguang was just a spiritual thought. However, this spiritual thought was left on Xiao Lintian through some secret technique, and it could unleash terrifying combat strength. At least, anyone below the sage ruler level would have a hard time dealing with it. Lintian, stabilize your Taoist core. Don't be affected by Chu Kuangren's words, sage ruler Zhangguang said loudly. Not long after, Xiao Lintian's complexion gradually improved. However, he still had some lingering fear as he stared at Chu Kuangren with hatred. "Chu Kuangren, how dare you try to use flowery words to disturb my Taoist core?" Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren could not help but chuckle. "Everything I've said is the truth. What do you mean by that? Besides, your own Taoist core is weak, yet you still have the cheek to blame it on others." As expected of a shameless place, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Upon hearing his words, not only was Xiao Lintian enraged, but even sage ruler Zhangguang, who was only in his spiritual will form, was enraged. Even some of the sages from the unknown lands who were secretly observing the situation were a little angry. After all, they were also in the unknown lands, and Chu Kuangren's words had implicitly dragged them into the unknown lands as well. This is the Heavenly Golden Palace's business. Why are you dragging us into this? Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far. You should know that the Heavenly Golden Palace can destroy your Black Heaven sect with ease. Sage ruler Zhangguang harumphed coldly. A cold glare shot out from Chu Kuangren's eyes. "Oh, are you threatening me now? Then what are you going to do about it?" Sage ruler Zhangguang snorted. In an instant, a terrifying surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme erupted from Chu Kuangren's body. The descendant's self-sword at his waist vibrated, and a terrifying sword ray shot into the sky as a blood-colored flame enveloped his body. 9 deaths blazing blood art, activate. 3 great Taoist physiques, activate. The 6 supreme foundation levels within Chu Kuangren's body shone brightly at the same time. The descendant's self-sword was unsheathed, and its ringing echoed throughout the heavens. With a single slash, a boundless surge of murderous energy wrapped around the sword's edge. It was so powerful that it almost tore the void apart. That slash was aimed directly at sage ruler Zhangguang's spiritual thought. What? Sage ruler Zhangguang's spiritual thought clone did not expect Chu Kuangren to attack without warning, and he even used his full strength in that attack. No matter how strong sage ruler Zhangguang's spiritual thought clone was, it was still destroyed by Chu Kuangren's slash as it was caught off guard. After the violent sword ray tore through sage ruler Zhangguang's spiritual thought clone, it did not stop there. Instead, it continued to shoot into the distance. 1 mountain, 2 mountains, 4 mountains, more than 10 mountains were shattered by that slash. An enormous rift that was 30 kilometers long and almost 3 kilometers deep had been sliced open on the ground. Moreover, there were strands of dense sword chi and a strand of Taoist aura that caused one's heart to palpitate on both sides of the rift. The power of that slash sent chills down the spines of the sages. The Empyrean walkers who were present were even more shocked. What a terrifying slash! Li Fuping, who was also a sword cultivator, could not help but gulp. He was 100% sure that even if there were 20 of him, he would not be able to block that slash. It sounded ridiculous to him. Li Fuping had to admit that an Empyrean walker was reduced to a unit of measurement for Chu Kuangren's slash. That slash had deeply shocked him. Threatening me? Why don't you ask around and see if I, Chu Kuangren, have ever been threatened by anyone? Chu Kuangren snorted coldly. Then his gaze landed on Xiao Lintian. Xiao Lintian, the heavenly golden palace Empyrean walker who possessed the heavenly golden imperial physique, felt his body stiffen under Chu Kuangren's gaze. A bone-chilling chill enveloped him as if his blood was about to freeze. Go back and tell your palace lord that I've destroyed one of his spiritual thought clones today. If he dares to invade the Black Heaven sect, not only will I destroy his real body, but I'll also make sure that the heavenly golden palace will never have a day of peace. If he suspects me, then let him see what happens to the scaled tribe and the bottomless chasm. Chu Kuangren said coldly. The sages who were secretly observing were speechless. Oh my God, this Chu Kuangren is too reckless. What kind of existence was the heavenly golden palace? It was one of the most powerful existences in the unknown lands. Even the other unknown lands would not dare to provoke the heavenly golden palace. Yet, Chu Kuangren had the guts to destroy the heavenly golden palace lord's spiritual thought clone and threaten the heavenly golden palace. How arrogant must he be to dare to do something like that? Lunatic. This guy is just as the rumors say. He's an unscrupulous lunatic who can't be measured by common sense. He's too arrogant. It's true that he's strong, but does everyone in the Black Heaven sect think like him? This isn't arrogance, it's reckless ignorance. In my opinion, it won't be long before the Black Heaven sect is razed to the ground. Chu Kuangren won't have a good ending either. But what does he mean by the bottomless chasm? Did he confront the bottomless chasm when he wreaked havoc in the scaled tribe? That's an existence no weaker than the heavenly golden palace. The sages all had different thoughts. Meanwhile, inside the heavenly golden palace, sage ruler Zhangguang, who was sitting on a cattail hassock, suddenly turned pale and spat out a mouthful of blood. The spiritual thought clone that he left in Xiao Lintian's body was refined using a secret technique. It had 1/10 of his strength and was extremely powerful. However, at the same time, the destruction of that spiritual thought clone would cause him to suffer a certain degree of damage. Chu Kuangren, how dare you destroy my clone? You deserve to die. Sage ruler Zhangguang was so angry that his face turned green. Chapter 375. D*****. Chu Kuangren, how dare you destroy my spiritual thought clone? Just you wait, I'll destroy the Black Heaven sect. Sage ruler Zhangguang growled. However, a voice suddenly rang out in the hall. Calm down. It was an old voice. Upon hearing that voice, the furious sage ruler Zhangguang calmed himself down. Forefather, why are you awake? He was confused. After all, the forefathers of the unknown lands had lived for countless years. In order to delay their heavenly deterioration stage 5, most of them were in hibernation and would not show themselves easily. Yet now, the forefather had awakened to stop him. What was going on? A few days ago, I was awakened by a powerful aura from the outer seas. I'm not the only one who sensed it. I'm afraid some of the other old folks sensed it too. That aura was too terrifying. Upon hearing that, sage ruler Zhangguang could not help but shudder. What kind of existence could make the forefather feel so terrified? Suddenly he thought of something. It's the headless lady. That's right, the old voice said. But what does that have to do with you stopping me from seeking revenge on the Black Heaven sect? Sage ruler Zhang Guang asked curiously. When my spiritual thought was roaming the heavens, I learned a lot about Chu Kuangren. One of the things I learned was that not long ago he went to the scaled tribe in the deep sea and caused a huge ruckus there. He even fought someone from the bottomless chasm. Besides that, after your spiritual thought was severed, he told you to go and see what happened to the bottomless chasm. This is the reason why I stopped you. Please enlighten me, forefather. A few days ago, I received news that the headless lady had caused a huge ruckus in the bottomless chasm. Out of the 7 chasm dwellers, 4 of them were killed. In the end, the headless lady left, leaving behind a devastated bottomless chasm. That was the day Chu Kuangren wreaked havoc in the scaled tribe, the old voice said. Upon hearing that, how could Elder Zhang Guang not know what his forefather was trying to say? His eyes widened as he said in shock, "Forefather, are you saying that Chu Kuangren is in contact with the headless lady, and that the headless lady is helping Chu Kuangren against the bottomless chasm? How is that possible? According to the records, the headless lady's origins are a mystery. I've never heard of her being associated with anyone, so how could she possibly help Chu Kuangren fight against the bottomless chasm?" The old voice said, "No matter what happened, it's unwise to provoke Chu Kuangren just for a spiritual thought clone. Forefather, could this be a coincidence? Is Chu Kuangren trying to scare us with this?" Sage ruler Zhang Guang guessed. "As long as there's a chance, you can't let the bottomless chasm happen in the heavenly golden palace. Otherwise, you'll be the greatest sinner of the heavenly golden palace." The old voice said sternly. Sage King Zhang Guang nodded reluctantly. The old voice did not move again, as if it had already left. Sage King Zhang Guang stood at the same spot for a while before taking out a communication compass. "Third Elder, find all the records about the headless woman in the library and send them to my room." His eyes flashed with an obscure light. "If we don't get rid of Chu Kuangren, the others will never have a chance to become emperors. The heavenly golden palace will never have the opportunity to become emperors. Whether it's to avenge my clone or for the opportunity to become emperors, Chu Kuangren must not be allowed to live. But first, we must find a way to deal with this headless lady. Black Warrior Domain, Empyrean Peak." The battle between the Empyrean walkers had come to an end. It ended with Chu Kuangren's victory. Even a peerless physique like the heavenly golden imperial physique was defeated by his opponent in one move. His combat strength was terrifying. This battle had confirmed Chu Kuangren's status among the younger generation. Even the Empyrean walkers were no match for him. After the battle, Chu Kuangren found Ethereal Rapture's Empyrean walker, Shui Zheng, who was about to leave the Empyrean Peak. It was not difficult to tell from Shui Zheng's dejected expression that this battle had dealt a heavy blow to him. As an Empyrean walker, he had always been very confident in his own abilities. However, today's battle had shown him the difference between them, the difference between heaven and earth. Compared to Chu Kuangren, an Empyrean walker like him was not even worth mentioning. "Brother Shui, please wait." At that moment, Chu Kuangren's voice came from behind Shui Zheng. He turned around and looked at him curiously. "But, is there anything else, Brother Chu? I'd like to pay a visit to Ethereal Rapture. Please lead the way, Brother Shui." Pay a visit to Ethereal Rapture? Shui Zheng was stunned for a moment before he recalled some of the rumors about Chu Kuangren. His expression suddenly froze as he said, "Brother Chu, I admit that I lost to you because my skills are inferior, but why must you kill me? Besides, the Ethereal Rapture is not a place where you can do whatever you want." Chu Kuangren was stunned. Why is Shui Zheng so agitated all of a sudden? "I'm just going to pay a visit, isn't that all? Is the Ethereal Rapture too much? Also, what did he mean by killing me?" Chu Kuangren made it sound like he was going to pick a fight with him. "Brother Shui, I'm just going to pay a visit. You don't have to go that far, do you?" "Of course not. Don't think that I don't know what you're implying. The Murong clan, the Shang clan, and the Sky Emperor Palace have all met bad ends when you visited them." Chu Kuangren finally understood. However, he felt that he was innocent. After all, was he really to be blamed for all of this? If it were not for those people looking for trouble, would he have gone on a killing spree? Brother Shui, don't worry. I'm only going to ethereal rapture to exchange for the celestial chalcedony. I have no intention of looking for trouble, Chu Kuangren said solemnly. Besides defeating Shui Zheng today, he did not have any grudges against ethereal rapture. He did not believe that he would cause any more trouble this time. Shui Zheng looked at Chu Kuangren suspiciously and said, "This is a serious matter. I'll have to report this to the sect leader." "Of course," Chu Kuangren replied. Not long after, Shui Zheng ended his call with Ethereal Rapture's sect leader. He looked at Chu Kuangren and said, "The sect leader said that I can bring you to Ethereal Rapture." "Thank you." Chu Kuangren breathed a sigh of relief. If Ethereal Rapture refused to let him go, he did not know where else he could find the celestial chalcedony. Although he could still set up the astonishing cloud of seas formation with some low-tier celestial chalcedony, its power would be greatly reduced. If he wanted to do it, he must do his best. Shui Zheng brought Chu Kuangren to Ethereal Rapture. "Brother Chu, what do you need this celestial chalcedony for?" Shui Zheng asked curiously along the way. Aside from being useful to some cultivators who cultivated special techniques, the celestial chalcedony was no different from normal soul stones and spiritual essences. The celestial chalcedony is the best material for setting up a formation. "I'm sure you know this, Brother Shui," Chu Kuangren said. "Oh, Brother Chu, you want to use it to set up a formation?" Chu Kuangren nodded. Of course, he would not divulge the details of the formation. Shui Zheng did not probe further. "Brother Chu, are you not afraid that the Heavenly Golden Palace will cause trouble for the Black Heaven sect if you threaten them?" Shui Zheng changed the topic. "How dare they?" Chu Kuangren snorted, his eyes filled with coldness. Chapter 376. How dare they? Chu Kuangren yelled with a cold glare in his eyes. Shui Zheng's heart skipped a beat when he saw that. Did Chu Kuangren really have the ability to deal with the unknown lands? "My apologies, I forgot my manners." Chu Kuangren retracted his cold gaze and smiled. He was extremely good-looking, and his smile was like a spring breeze. Seeing this, Shui Zheng's heart relaxed, and he also slowly relaxed. "Brother Chu, let's continue our journey." "All right." Chu Kuangren nodded. He secretly gave himself a thumbs up. It seemed like he had successfully scared Shui Zheng. He would definitely report this to the ethereal sect, and by then, they would be wary of him. Did the Black Heaven sect, or rather, Chu Kuangren, have the ability to deal with the unknown lands? To be honest, it was extremely difficult. No one knew for sure how powerful the unknown lands were, but one thing was for sure, they were definitely much stronger than any sage orthodoxy that Chu Kuangren had ever seen before. Much, much stronger. The Black Heaven sect had improved tremendously in the past few years, but compared to the unknown lands that had tens or even hundreds of thousands of years of history, there was still a gap. It was impossible to fight them head-on. Chu Kuangren's decision to kill great sage ruler Zhang Guang's spiritual thought clone and threaten the Heavenly Golden Palace was a gamble. His biggest trump card was the Headless Lady. By revealing that he was somehow related to the Headless Lady, he was betting that the Heavenly Golden Palace would be wary of the Headless Lady and would not dare to act rashly. That way, he could buy time for the Black Heaven sect to improve its strength. Under those circumstances, that was the only thing he could do. If he showed any signs of fear or hesitation, he had every reason to believe that the Heavenly Golden Palace and the other unknown lands would come after him and the Black Heaven sect. That was because Chu Kuangren's existence had already prevented the unknown lands from fighting for the Emperor Ascension opportunity. "I'm now at the heart of the struggle. I could be the target of everyone at any time." Chu Kuangren looked into the distant sky with a deep gaze. To outsiders, he was glorious and majestic. However, Chu Kuangren knew very well that he was treading on thin ice. If he was not careful, he and the Black Heaven sect would be doomed. However, he had no other way out. Since that was the case, he might as well press forward and properly wrestle with these unknown lands. Soon, Chu Kuangren followed Shui Zheng to a mountain peak. Ethereal Rapture was, in fact, a secret realm. Furthermore, it was a secret realm that was constantly on the move, making it hard to locate. Only the disciples of ethereal rapture had some sort of searching method. Open. Shuizheng took out a jade medallion and threw it into the air. The jade medallion shone brightly and opened up a spatial tunnel. Fellow Taoist Chu, please. Please. The two of them stepped into the spatial tunnel and arrived at the ethereal rapture. As soon as he entered, he saw a mountain range shrouded in clouds and mist. The mountain range was filled with exotic flowers and plants, as well as rare birds and beasts. So this is the ethereal rapture. It's like a paradise indeed. Chu Kuangren exclaimed. You flatter me, fellow Taoist Chu. Shuizheng smiled. After that, he brought Chu Kuangren to the main peak of ethereal rapture. Along the way, they met quite a few ethereal rapture disciples. Through Chu Kuangren's observation, he realized that each and every one of these ethereal rapture disciples were top-notch geniuses. Any one of them could easily become a true disciple or even a Taoist of a sage orthodoxy in the outside world. Senior Shui. A female disciple walked up and bowed at Shuizheng. She looked at Chu Kuangren curiously. As the Empyrean walker of ethereal rapture, Shuizheng was highly respected among the disciples. Hence, it was only natural for her to be curious when she saw that he had brought an outsider back. Senior Shui, who is this Taoist brother? The female disciple looked at Chu Kuangren with a dazed look in her eyes. She felt that the man in front of her was extraordinarily handsome. He was much more handsome than everyone she had ever met, including her senior brother Shuizheng. My name is Chu Kuangren. Nice to meet you. Greetings, Brother Chu. My name is Kai Yun. Are you here at Ethereal Rapture as a guest, Brother Chu? The female disciple, Kai Yun, said enthusiastically. More or less. In that case, Brother Chu, you should stay for a few more days. There are many fun places in Ethereal Rapture. I'll bring you around when the time comes. I'll be troubling you then. Beside her, Shuizheng could not help but twitch his mouth. He felt that he, the true elder senior brother of Ethereal Rapture, was being ignored. He glanced at Chu Kuangren with a sour feeling in his heart. Isn't he just slightly more handsome than me? Is there a need to be so enthusiastic about him? Kai Yun was not the only one. Shuizheng had also noticed that there were quite a number of disciples around them. Moreover, most of them were female cultivators. Each and every one of them was staring at Chu Kuangren with glowing eyes. Some of them were even salivating. Those who did not know better would have thought that they were a pack of starving wolves that had just seen a lamb. Is there such a good-looking man in this world? I thought senior brother Shuizheng was already a handsome man. I can't believe there's someone so much better looking than him in this world. Who is he? Ethereal Rapture hasn't had any guests for so many years. Could he be a new disciple that senior brother Shui brought back? Is that true? That's great. If he really is our junior brother, I'll definitely guide him in his cultivation every day. The male cultivators were a little jealous at the sight of the enthusiastic female cultivators. They looked at Chu Kuangren with hostility in their eyes. However, as they looked at him, they were convinced. F***, I can't believe there's such a good-looking man in this world. If I were a girl, I'd sleep with him too. Actually, I think it doesn't matter if he's a guy or a girl. I just like good-looking men. When Shuizheng heard the disciples' discussions, he felt that Chu Kuangren's looks were even more terrifying than his cultivation level. All right, Kai Yun, this is the sect leader's guest. We still need to meet the sect leader, so I'll talk to you later. Shuizheng said. The sect leader's guest? Kai Yun was stunned. Shouldn't the sect leader's guests be sages? They're all so old after all. How did such a young and good-looking man get involved with an old man like the sect leader? Of course, she did not dare to say that out loud. While her thoughts were running wild, Shuizheng had already left with Chu Kuangren and arrived at a palace at the top of the mountain. There were a few elders in the palace. The one in the middle was dressed in a blue and white Taoist robe and held a horsetail whisk in his hand. That person was the Ethereal Rapture's sect leader, Master Taoist Yun Tao. His cultivation level was the same as sage ruler Zhang Guang, a sage ruler. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren, Master Taoist Yun Tao's eyes lit up and he smiled. Junior Chu, your presence brings light to the ethereal rapture. The rest of the elders looked at Chu Kuangren with different expressions on their faces. In fact, they had no enmity with Chu Kuangren. However, his existence had affected the various unknown lands' fight for the emperor's opportunity, so they did not have a good impression of Chu Kuangren. However, since Chu Kuangren did not do anything out of line during his visit to the ethereal rapture, they could not do anything to him. Greetings, Brother Yun Tao. Chu Kuangren smiled. Chapter 377. Greetings, Brother Yun Tao. Chu Kuangren smiled. Master Taoist Yun Tao and the other elders frowned when they heard how he addressed Chu Kuangren. The other elders were even more displeased with Chu Kuangren now. That was because Chu Kuangren was only a sage. Master Taoist Yun Tao, on the other hand, was a sage ruler. Even if Chu Kuangren lived for a few hundred more years, he would only be a fraction of Master Taoist Yun Tao's age. How could they talk to each other as peers? How dare Chu Kuangren? How dare you address me as a fellow Taoist? How rude. One of the elders could not help but scoff. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. What's wrong? Brother Yun Tao is the leader of ethereal rapture, and I'm the Black Heaven sect's leader. Is there anything wrong with me addressing him as a fellow Taoist? Do you think that the Black Heaven sect is inferior to ethereal rapture? He could tell that these people did not like him anyway. Naturally, he would not try to please them. Since they were already displeased, he did not mind making them hate him even more. The elder was speechless when he heard what Chu Kuangren said. He could not find any words to refute Chu Kuangren's words. How rude. The elder could not find any words to refute Chu Kuangren. Master Taoist Yun Tao said, Third elder, please don't be rude in front of our esteemed guest. Brother Chu is right. We both lead the same orthodoxy, so it's not wrong for us to talk to each other as peers. He automatically changed the way he addressed Junior Chu to Brother Chu. Since he had said so, the other elders could not say anything even if they had any opinions. Alright, enough with the pleasantries. The main reason I came to ethereal rapture this time is to exchange for the celestial chalcedony. What do you think, Brother Yun Tao? Chu Kuangren went straight to the point. It's not difficult to get the celestial chalcedony, but what do you want to exchange with us, Brother Chu? Master Taoist Yun Tao asked. 200 million top-tier soul stones and a kilogram of top-tier celestial chalcedony. Chu Kuangren casually stated his terms. Before he came, Chu Kuangren had done some research. According to the market price, a kilogram of top-tier celestial chalcedony was worth 100,000 top-tier soul stones. The price he offered was already twice the market price. Taoist Chu, do you think that ethereal rapture is lacking in spirit stones? Taoist Yun Tao smiled faintly. What does ethereal rapture want? Your monarch art. Before Master Taoist Yun Tao could finish his sentence, Chu Kuangren had already turned around and left. Taoist Yun Tao did not expect the other party to make such a move and was momentarily stunned. It was only when the other party reached the door that he spoke up to stop him. Well, Taoist Chu, please wait a moment. We're doing business after all. We can talk later. Business is all about sincerity. However, I don't see any sincerity from the ethereal rapture. You want to exchange 500 kilograms of holy chalcedony for an emperor art? This is the biggest joke in the world. How precious was an emperor technique? Apart from the unknown lands, all the sage orthodoxies in the outside world might not even have a complete monarch art. Such a technique was a priceless treasure. Not to mention 1,000 caddies of celestial crystal chalcedony, even 10,000 caddies or 100,000 caddies would not be enough. I was just joking. Fellow Chu, please don't be angry. Master Taoist Yun Tao laughed. This was an opportunity to extort Chu Kuangren, so how could he let it go so easily? Of course, he also knew that asking for an emperor art was too much. However, even if they did not want an emperor art, they did not lack anything else. How about this 1 billion top-tier soul stones? After much deliberation, Master Taoist Yun Tao decided to ask for soul stones. After all, soul stones were the currency of Firmament Star. No matter how much they had, it would not be a burden. Ethereal Rapture did not lack anything else either. The few things that Chu Kuangren had on him that they could not afford to exchange for a few kilograms of holy chalcedony, and Chu Kuangren would not do it either. 1 billion top-tier soul stones and 500 kilograms of top-tier celestial chalcedony. Master Taoist Yun Tao, you sure have a good plan. Do you really think the Black Heaven Sect's soul stones come from nowhere? Chu Kuangren snorted coldly. The price was 10 times higher than the market price. That was daylight robbery. Brother Chu, this is the best we can do. If you don't want to trade, you may leave. However, it's not easy to find such celestial chalcedony in Firmament Star, Master Taoist Yun Tao said calmly. A rare commodity worth hoarding. That was Master Taoist Yun Tao's confidence. Chu Kuangren gritted his teeth and cursed the old man in his heart. However, the celestial chalcedony was very important to him as it was an important material for the astonishing cloud of seas formation. He could not afford to lose it. It was not impossible for him to trade for it with an emperor technique. Chu Kuangren's departure earlier was just a show. Master Taoist Yun Tao had greatly underestimated the importance of the celestial chalcedony to him. Fine, 1 billion it is. Chu Kuangren gritted his teeth and pretended to be angry. Using 1 billion soul stones was still better than exchanging an emperor technique. He could always look for a few orthodoxies in the future if he had the chance. All right then. I'll get someone to get it for you. Master Taoist Yun Tao said. A moment later, a disciple came to report. Sect leader, we only have less than 100 kilograms of top-tier celestial chalcedony left. Chu Kuangren's expression turned cold when he heard that. His eyes flashed and the descendant's self-sword at his waist could not help but tremble. A terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme filled the surroundings. Some of the elders were speechless. The disciple who came to report had cold sweat dripping from his forehead. He looked at the handsome Chu Kuangren with fear in his eyes. Is ethereal rapture messing with me? Chu Kuangren sneered. Brother Chu, please calm down. Master Taoist Yun Tao quickly said before he looked at the disciple and asked, why are there less than 100 kilograms of top-tier celestial chalcedony left? The disciple trembled and said, Sect leader, the Taoists have been cultivating diligently recently, so the celestial chalcedony has been used up quite quickly. The unknown lands appeared one after another, and they were about to completely emerge into the world. To prepare themselves, the disciples of the orthodoxies were also working hard in their cultivation. As an important strategic resource of ethereal rapture, the celestial chalcedony was used by every disciple, so it was used up very quickly. I see. Master Taoist Yun Tao said in realization. He then looked at Chu Kuangren and apologized. Brother Chu, I'm sorry. I didn't expect this to happen. Chu Kuangren only stared at him coldly. It was as if he was saying, keep acting, keep acting. As the leader of ethereal rapture, how could you not know about these things? It was obvious that Chu Kuangren was putting on a show for him. Chu Kuangren wanted to see how Master Taoist Yun Tao was going to clean up this mess. Since he could not get his hands on the goods, he had to get those billion soul stones back no matter what. Master Taoist Yun Tao did not want to start a war with him over this. How about this? Although the celestial chalcedony in our storage is gone, there's a chalcedony mineral vein in ethereal rapture. There's a large amount of unmined celestial chalcedony there, let alone top-tier ones. As an apology, Brother Chu, feel free to take a few kilograms of raw stones. No matter what kind of celestial chalcedony you find, it'll all belong to you. What do you think? Master Taoist Yun Tao smiled. Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. Raw stones? Sounds good. Chapter 378. Since the celestial chalcedony in the ethereal rapture was almost depleted, Master Taoist Yun Tao decided to bring Chu Kuangren to retrieve the ores. Soon, they arrived at a mine. Here, there were many disciples who were hard at work. Mining ores, cutting stones, sect leader. An elder in charge of mining ores walked up. A strange look flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes when he saw that person. Isn't this the first city's third prefect? I didn't expect to see you here. This elder from Ethereal Rapture was none other than the first city's third prefect. It's you, Chu Kuangren. The third prefect was very surprised to see Chu Kuangren. He didn't expect to meet him here. You two know each other? Taoist Yun Tao asked curiously. Sort of. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Heh, what a coincidence. The 12th elder just joined Ethereal Rapture not long ago. He obtained a legacy of Ethereal Rapture from the outside world and found us not long ago. Taoist Yun Tao smiled. Ethereal Rapture had always had Empyrean walkers roaming the outside world, but they were not as ostentatious as the current generation. Most of them were not well known, and their main purpose was to understand the situation in the outside world or to find some good seedlings to groom. Therefore, they would sometimes accidentally leave behind some inheritances in the outside world. The third prefect had obtained such an inheritance. He had been searching for the Ethereal Rapture for many years. Finally, with the clues provided by the Sky Emperor Palace, he managed to find it and successfully join it. Yes, 12th Elder. Taoist Chu is now a guest of Ethereal Rapture. I brought him here to collect some ores. Where are the ores that have been mined? Taoist Yun Tao asked with a faint smile. Please follow me. The third prefect brought them to a place where countless raw stones were piled up. A dense wave of spiritual energy spread from the raw stones. Taoist Yun Tao smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Chu, please choose. There was a playful look in his eyes. Fellow Taoist Yun Tao, how many do you want me to choose? How about this? It's our Ethereal Rapture's mistake this time. Since Taoist Chu wants 500 kilograms of high-grade celestial chalcedony, let's exchange it for 5,000 kilograms of raw stones. The rest will be our compensation. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren could not help but sneer. It sounded like 10,000 jin was much more than 1,000 jin. But who knew if the celestial crystal chalcedony in a raw stone was a low-grade or high-grade one? It might even be a piece of useless rock. This was a gamble of luck. Moreover, Chu Kuangren had just arrived, so he had no idea how good or bad these ores were. Who knew what the probability of obtaining a top-tier celestial chalcedony was? However, he didn't care about any of this. Because he could cheat. 5,000 kilograms of raw stone. This is what fellow Yun Tao said. No matter whether the celestial chalcedony is good or bad, it belongs to me. Of course. Taoist Yun Tao nodded. He was well aware of the probability of obtaining a high-grade celestial chalcedony. Not to mention 10,000 kilograms of raw ores, even 100 kilograms might not be able to obtain 100 kilograms of high-grade celestial chalcedony. In his opinion, Chu Kuangren was bound to suffer this loss. Beside him, the third prefect was also looking at Chu Kuangren playfully. Chu Kuangren activated his treasure locating skill. Immediately, all kinds of information about the primordial stones came back. Suddenly, he had an idea. Looking at the mine in the distance, he said, I want to enter the mine and pick a few raw stones. Sure. Taoist Yun Tao did not stop him. In his opinion, there was no difference between the two. Then, Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and entered the mine. Not long after, he walked out with a pile of ores. In addition, he chose a few thousand kilograms from the pile of ores that weighed several billion kilograms. Alright, this is it. Chu Kuangren placed the 5,000 kilograms of raw stones into his yin and yang ring. Hey, Brother Chu, don't tell me you don't understand the stones? When we get back, I'll get someone to do it. Brother Chu, you might not know this, but these celestial chalcedonies require a special method to be cut. Otherwise, the chalcedony will be easily damaged. Taoist Yun Tao said. It was obvious that he wanted Chu Kuangren to cut the stones on the spot and see how he would suffer this loss. If that's the case, go ahead. Chu Kuangren took out the raw stone again. Soon, someone came to help him cut the stones. Brother Chu, we've agreed that no matter whether the chalcedony is good or bad, you can't go back on your word. We won't return the 1 billion soul stones, Taoist Yun Tao said. Of course. Chu Kuangren looked at a raw stone that was peeling off and said, a burst of white light bloomed. A rich and strange spiritual chi rippled. He saw that the rough surface layer of the ore had been removed, revealing a piece of celestial chalcedony that was as smooth as jade. Upon seeing this chalcedony, Taoist Yun Tao and the others were shocked. This is an exquisite tier celestial chalcedony? Exquisite tier celestial chalcedony was even rarer than top tier celestial chalcedony. One might not even find 1 kilogram of it in 100,000 kilograms. However, Chu Kuangren's first raw stone yielded such an exquisite tier chalcedony. From the looks of it, it must be at least 5 kilograms. Is this guy's luck that good? Taoist Yun Tao and the third prefect looked at Chu Kuangren strangely. The stone cutting continued. Exquisiter chalcedony, exquisiter chalcedony, exquisiter chalcedony. After a few dozen pieces, they all turned out to be exquisiter chalcedony. A strong wave of spiritual energy filled the air. The disciples who were mining in the surroundings also stopped their work and gathered around. Oh my God, are my eyes playing tricks on me? So many exquisiter chalcedonies. What's going on? We've been working so hard for so long and yet we still can't get so many exquisiter chalcedonies. How did this guy do it? The disciples discussed among themselves. Even Taoist Yun Tao was speechless and regretful. This Chu Kuangren actually had some kind of technique to identify raw stones. Otherwise, there was no way to explain how he could get so many exquisiter chalcedonies. This time, he was the one who suffered a loss. Continue cutting. Chu Kuangren ignored Taoist Yun Tao and the others and said to the disciple who was in charge of cutting. All right. That disciple was already shocked by the dozens of exquisite tier chalcedonies. He only regained his senses when he heard Chu Kuangren's words. He quickly nodded and continued to cut the stones. Exquisiter chalcedonies, exquisiter chalcedonies. Many of the disciples were dumbfounded. Looking at the exquisiter chalcedonies that were piled up like cabbages, they did not know what to say. At that moment, a colorful ray of light shot into the sky. The clouds were dyed colorful as dense spiritual qi converged into a vortex. Even Taoist Yun Tao's body could not help but tremble at the sight. This is the celestial core. The celestial core was also a type of celestial chalcedony, but it was the essence of chalcedony essence, which was much more valuable than exquisite tier chalcedonies. Over the years, the ethereal rapture had only mined a few kilograms of celestial cores, which was very rare. I can't believe he still found celestial cores. Taoist Yun Tao's heart was bleeding. 1 kilogram of celestial core was equivalent to tens of millions of top-tier soul stones. Coupled with the exquisite tier chalcedonies that Chu Kuangren had just cut, the total value of the celestial cores had far exceeded 1 billion top-tier soul stones. However, what made Taoist Yun Tao's heart ache was yet to come. The next raw stones that were cut open contained celestial cores. When the stone cutting was complete, Chu Kuangren had obtained a total of 5 kilograms of celestial cores and 4 kilograms of exquisite tier celestial chalcedonies. The total value was incalculable. Chapter 379. Chu Kuangren. Master Taoist Yun Tao gritted his teeth. Ethereal rapture had suffered a huge loss this time. Everything else aside, just the kilogram of celestial cores alone was worth all the celestial chalcedonies that ethereal rapture had mined for tens of thousands of years. Not to mention the 2,000 kilograms of exquisite tier celestial chalcedonies. Chu Kuangren was literally sucking the ethereal rapture dry. How did he manage to find the celestial chalcedony in the entire celestial chalcedony mine, which weighs billions of kilograms? Oh my God, I've been here for so long, but I've never seen anything like this. A kilogram of celestial cores? Did he just find all the celestial cores in the entire celestial chalcedony mineral vein? Unbelievable. Everyone at the scene could not believe it. Even if Chu Kuangren had the ability to identify raw gemstones, it would still take him at least a few months or even a year to find all these celestial cores in such a large amount of raw gemstones or even an entire mineral vein. However, how long did Chu Kuangren take? He found them in less than half a day. This was no longer something that could be explained by his ability to identify ores. It was as if the celestial cores ran to Chu Kuangren on their own. How did he do it? Everyone couldn't help but have this doubt in their minds. Chu Kuangren did not care about what the crowd thought. He waved his hand and stored all the celestial chalcedonies into his yin and yang ring before smiling in satisfaction. What the crowd did not know was that he had the treasure-locating skill. He knew exactly which ores contained the best celestial chalcedony. Since the deal is done, it's time for me to leave. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Hold it right there. You're not allowed to leave. A few elders suddenly rushed up and blocked Chu Kuangren's way. Several powerful surges of sage Taoist rhymes immediately locked onto Chu Kuangren. The few of them stared at Chu Kuangren with cold gazes. Chu Kuangren placed his hand on the hilt of his descendant self-sword. His expression was calm, but the chill in his eyes sent chills down everyone's spines. Sages, are you trying to act shamelessly? Chu Kuangren said calmly. A wave of sword-based Taoist rhymes spread out, and the surrounding air seemed to have transformed into a piercingly cold sword qi, causing everyone to feel a stabbing pain. You've taken so many celestial essence crystals and peerless grade jade essence crystals. Do you want us to let you leave just like that? That's impossible. The peerless grade chalcedony is fine, but the heaven crystal essence must be left behind. A few sages said. For the cultivators of ethereal celestial chalcedony, a high-grade celestial chalcedony was just too important, let alone the celestial essence. It was very useful even for sages. How could they hand it over so easily? Fellow Taoist Yun Tao, we have an agreement. No matter what kind of celestial chalcedony is extracted from the 5,000 kilograms raw stone, it belongs to me. What? Are you going back on your word now? Chu Kuangren ignored the elders and stared straight at Master Taoist Yun Tao, waiting for his response. However, the gradually rising sword-based Taoist rhyme on his body indicated that if the other party dared to go back on his words, he wouldn't mind carving out a path of blood. Taoist Yun Tao naturally saw through the other party's attitude. His expression kept changing and finally he took a deep breath. Let him go. Sect Master. We mustn't lose that 5,000 kilograms of celestial essence. The expressions of the few elders changed. Let him go. We've already agreed on this. If he goes back on his word, it'll be a disgrace to ethereal celestial. Master Taoist Yun Tao said. The elders looked at each other at his words. In the end, they could only reluctantly retract their auras. A wise move, Chu Kuangren said. With his head held high, he slowly left under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Shuizheng, please send Brother Chu off. Master Taoist Yun Tao said to Shuizheng, who was among the crowd. Shuizheng quickly followed him and looked at Chu Kuangren helplessly. He finally knew that the rumors in the outside world were true. Nothing good came out of having Chu Kuangren pay them a visit. The previous few orthodoxies had their sages killed, and this time, ethereal celestial rapture had lost so many celestial essences and celestial chalcedonies. This loss was no less than the death of a few sages. Let's stop here. Chu Kuangren arrived at the exit of ethereal rapture's secret realm and said to Shuizheng and Kai Yun, who he had met along the way. Brother Chu, remember to come again when you're free. Kai Yun said reluctantly. Sigh, it's such a shame that such a good-looking man has to leave after less than a day. All right, I'll come visit again when I'm free. Chu Kuangren replied politely. Shuizheng's expression changed when he heard that. Ethereal rapture's whereabouts are unpredictable and they're always on the move. Brother Chu, if you don't know how to track them down, I'm afraid you won't be able to find them. Let's not trouble ourselves. Chu Kuangren's visit this time had already dealt a huge blow to ethereal rapture. What would happen if he were to visit again? Heh, I'll take my leave then. Chu Kuangren smiled. He then turned around and left ethereal rapture. Being able to obtain 5,000 kilograms of celestial essences is a surprise. With them, the astonishing cloud of seas formation's power can be maximized. I wonder how Boss Chen is doing. Chu Kuangren thought to himself on his way back to the Black Heaven sect. Setting up the astonishing cloud of seas formation required two major elements. One was the celestial chalcedony, and the other was the cloud flow or. Now, he had obtained one of them. After returning to the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren contacted the Four Seas firm. He learned that Qian Fugui had already prepared enough cloud flow or and was now shipping it to the Black Heaven sect. Now, I just need to wait for the cloud flow or to set up the astonishing cloud of seas formation, Chu Kuangren thought to himself. However, before that, someone else came knocking on his door. That person was from the Acheron Manor of the Unknown Lands. Black Heaven sect, inside the Longevity Hall. A black-robed cultivator stood with his hands behind his back with a cold expression. Chilling Taoist rhymes flowed around his body. Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes when he saw that person. That familiar aura belonged to a demonic cultivator. Moreover, it was a sage-level demonic cultivator. I'm an elder of Acheron Manor, Black Willow. Black Willow Sage greeted Chu Kuangren with a fist salute. Black Willow Sage, what brings you to the Black Heaven sect? I've heard that not long ago, the Empyrean Walker of Acheron Manor had a conflict with you, Brother Chu. I'm here today to resolve this matter. Black Willow Sage smiled. He took out a yin and yang ring and said, there are 1 billion top-tier soul stones in here. Please accept them, Brother Chu. Let's bury the hatchet. 1 billion top-tier soul stones. Acheron Manor sure is generous. Chu Kuangren was amazed. Although he did not mind using 1 billion top-tier soul stones to trade the celestial chalcedony with ethereal rapture, to a sage orthodoxy, 1 billion top-tier soul stones was a very large number. When Chu Kuangren won a few billion soul stones in the first city, it was enough to make some sage orthodoxies cry in pain. Since we've buried the hatchet, I hope Brother Chu can return Wudao's yin and yang ring, Black Willow Sage continued. Who said we agreed? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Black Willow Sage's expression froze and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Brother Chu, do you think these soul stones are not enough? It's useless no matter how many soul stones you bring. Yuan Wudao ordered the Underworld Palace to secretly poison our Black Heaven sect. There's no way to resolve this. Go back and tell him that his life is mine. No one can stop him. Chapter 380. Go back and tell Yuan Wudao that I'm going to kill him. No one can stop him. Chu Kuangren said coldly. 1 billion soul stones? Was that a lot? Besides the fact that the Black Heaven sect did not lack soul stones, 1 billion soul stones were nothing compared to the lives of the Black Heaven sect's disciples. Brother Chu, do you really have to go this far? Black Willow Sage's expression darkened. However, Chu Kuangren did not care. He sat calmly on his chair and even took a sip of tea. That's all I have to say. Get lost. Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far. Black Willow Sage was furious. What's wrong? As a demonic cultivator, I'm letting you go now. Do you have anything to complain about? Chu Kuangren looked up and said. He did not have a good impression of the Unknown Lands, and he hated demonic Unknown Lands like the Acheron Manor even more. It was especially so after Yuan Wudao instructed the Underworld Palace to poison the Black Heaven sect. If it were not for the fact that the Black Heaven sect had yet to set up a formation to deal with the Unknown Lands, he would have killed Yuan Wudao. I can leave, but I must take back Wudao's yin and yang ring. Black Willow Sage suppressed his anger and said, Oh, so you care about that yin and yang ring. Chu Kuangren chuckled and took out a jade amulet. It was the heavenly jade amulet that he obtained from Yuan Wudao's yin and yang ring. He played with it in his hand and looked at Black Willow Sage. What do you care about, the yin and yang ring or this heavenly jade amulet? You know about this jade amulet? Black Willow Sage's expression changed. That should not be possible. After so many years, the records of the emperors in the outside world should have been mostly cleaned up by the Unknown Lands. How did Chu Kuangren know about this heavenly jade amulet? So what if I know? So what if I don't know? I'm taking this jade amulet anyway, Chu Kuangren said. Black Willow Sage looked at Chu Kuangren and said, Brother Chu, aren't you afraid of becoming a public enemy? Chu Kuangren, who was playing with the jade amulet, stopped. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Black Willow Sage also felt an inexplicable pressure in the grand hall, which made him wary. Everyone's target, haven't I been one for a long time? Acheron Manor, do you dare to try first? Black Willow Saint was silent for a while. Then he snorted, "Goodbye." He turned and left. Even though he was a great sage, he still didn't dare to use force. When Chu Kuangren threatened the Heavenly Golden Palace, many of the unknown lands had secretly investigated the Bottomless Chasm's current situation. They knew that the Bottomless Chasm was heavily damaged, and all of this was most likely related to Chu Kuangren. Sect leader, Elder Ruyan could not help but look at Chu Kuangren worriedly. As intelligent as she was, she could also sense the current situation that Chu Kuangren and the Black Heaven sect were in. "Leave everything to me." Chu Kuangren did not say much. However, these 4 words inexplicably made Elder Ruyan feel at ease. The Black Heaven sect will advance and retreat together with the sect leader. Life and death. Elder Ruyan said firmly. What life and death? Don't exaggerate it so much. It's just a few shameless places. Why are you making it sound like the end of the world? Chu Kuangren chuckled and pretended to be relaxed. At this moment, his communication artifact vibrated. It's me. What's the matter? Sect leader Chu, something bad has happened. The batch of cloud flow or that you requested has been robbed in the outer seas. Boss Qian's voice came from the communication artifact. A cold glint flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes when he heard that. Tell me what happened. We're not sure either. Just a while ago, the team that was transporting the cloud flow or was robbed in the outer seas. Who did it? I'm not sure. It's an emergency, so we're still investigating. Alright, I understand. I'll go there myself, Chu Kuangren said. He then turned off the communication artifact. After that, he gave Elder Ruyan some instructions and left the Black Heaven sect. He then turned into a stream of light and flew towards the outer seas. Outer seas. A few large ships docked at the shore of Ravengale Island. Many people disembarked from the ships, and most of them were shackled as they were chased onto the island. Brother, what should we do with the ores on the ships? A man dressed in black asked a golden core cultivator. The nascent soul cultivator looked at the piles and piles of cloud flow ore on the ships behind him and licked his lips. These ores are worth a lot. Find a place to store them and sell them when the time comes. Where should we put them? Besides, with so many ores, it'll be easy for us to be discovered. If the elders find out that we're secretly storing ores, we'll suffer. If only we had a high-grade yin and yang ring. The black-robed cultivator said helplessly. Most low-level cultivators did not have a yin and yang ring. Even if they did, it would be a low-grade yin and yang ring that was 1 or 2 cubic meters in size. I do have one here, but I can't store all of them. The golden core cultivator pondered for a while and said, how about this? Get someone to hide 1/3 of the ores in a nearby valley. As for the remaining 2/3, hand it over to the elders. There was no way they could secretly consume so many ores. All right. The 2 of them split up. Not long after, an elder came. How's it going? Elder, we've captured a total of 1,360 people this time. Including the ones we've captured before, we've gathered 10,000 people. It's enough for us to sacrifice to the serpent deity, the golden core cultivator said. Then he brought the elder to a few merchant ships. When he saw the cloud flow or, the elder's eyes lit up. Oh, so many cloud flow or and they're all top tier too. They're worth a lot. Wait, this is the 4 Seas Merchant Guild's ship. The elder looked at the merchant ship in surprise. However, he did not take it to heart. The 4 Seas Merchant Guild was indeed famous, but Ravengale Island did not have much business with them anyway. Lu Jia, you've done well this time. When the sacrificial ceremony is over, I'll promote you as a true disciple. Thank you, Elder, Lu Jia said happily. Gather everyone now. We'll head to the serpent deity's oceanic territory tomorrow. The next day, a large ship carrying tens of thousands of people left Ravengale Island. On this day, Chu Kuangren had also arrived at the outer seas. Although the 4 Seas firm had yet to investigate the identity of the person who had stolen the cloud flow or, Chu Kuangren had the treasure locating skill, which gave him a keen sense of treasure. With so many cloud flow ores gathered together, the fluctuations they emitted were enough for Chu Kuangren to sense them from tens of thousands of miles away. He used the treasure locating skill all the way and finally locked onto an island. This island was huge, and there were many smaller islands scattered around it. Moreover, there were more than 100,000 cultivators living there. It was obviously an extraordinary orthodoxy in the outer seas. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about that. He came to the sky above the largest island, raised his hand, and gathered the spiritual qi. In an instant, the wind and clouds around him surged, and a horrifying surge of Taoist rhymes spread in all directions with Chu Kuangren at the center. All the cultivators on the island sensed this extraordinary aura, and they all looked towards the sky with their mouths agape. Chapter 381. On Ravengale Island, a majestic spiritual power gathered and formed into a huge vortex. Its extraordinary aura was felt by every cultivator on the island. Even one of the sages on the island was shocked. This aura, could it be the Ravengale Island sage, the old man with the aquiline nose who went to the school of White Lotus to retrieve the Ravenblade sage's corpse, suddenly opened his eyes. He stared at the sky above Ravengale Island with a horrified expression. There was no mistaking that aura. D***gemenet, how did he get here? The old man with the aquiline nose cursed and quickly flew out. In the sky, Chu Kuangren gathered his spiritual power and a majestic Buddhist light appeared, which then turned into a huge golden palm that descended from the sky. Before the palm arrived, the entire Ravengale Island was already shaking. What a horrifying palm energy. I wonder if Ravengale Island will be annihilated if this palm strikes. No, we must block it. The cultivators of Ravengale Island were terrified. Some of the strong cultivators on the island joined forces and unleashed wave after wave of Taoist rhymes that blasted towards the golden palm. However, the palm was unstoppable. When the Taoist rhymes landed on it, they were easily destroyed like bubbles. 1,000 meters, 700 meters, 500 meters, 300 meters, as the palm approached the island, the horrifying pressure caused some of the weaker cultivators on Ravengale Island to explode and die. Even the battle monarchs and honorables could not withstand such power. They all fell to their knees and looked at the descending palm in horror. At that critical moment, a figure appeared in front of the crowd. It was the old man with the aquiline nose. He roared and channeled his spiritual power. Sage Taoist rhymes erupted and formed a black barrier in front of the palm. The moment the two collided, the entire island shook violently. Block it! The old man with the aquiline nose growled and channeled his spiritual power desperately. However, the black barrier that he had created was unable to withstand this palm strike. It shattered with a loud bang, and the huge palm strike smashed onto the island. The earth-shattering explosion shook the ocean. The ground that was hit by the palm caved in, causing smoke and dust to billow out. The ground shattered, and huge cracks spread out like a spider web. A storm was stirred up, and countless cultivators were sent flying. With the island as the center, the waves continued to spread outwards. When everything calmed down, everyone was greeted by the sight of a devastated land and a shattered island. A huge hole appeared in the middle of Blackwind Island. Waves surged in the middle, and with the hole as the center, huge cracks spread out, directly dividing the entire Blackwind Island into more than a dozen pieces. Everyone was shocked by this scene. They stared at the white-robed Chu Kuangren who was hovering in midair. Their eyes were filled with hatred and deep fear. The talon-shaped nose old man stared at Chu Kuangren in the sky and roared furiously, "Chu Kuangren, what the hell are you trying to do?" Chu Kuangren's gaze was as cold as ice. "I'm the one who asked you what you're planning to do. Have you eaten a dragon's liver or a phoenix's gallbladder? How dare you touch my things?" The aquiline-nosed old man was stunned for a moment, and then he was a little confused. Since when did they touch Chu Kuangren's things? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Hand over the cloud flow or? Otherwise, I will make Blackwind Island sink into the sea today. Hearing Chu Kuangren's words, an old man in the crowd suddenly turned pale. The disciple next to him did not fare any better. His legs turned to jelly, and he immediately fell to the ground, terrified. The cloud flow or that batch of cloud flow or belongs to you. The Blackwind Island elder looked at Chu Kuangren and said in horror. Hearing that, the aquiline-nosed old man also regained his senses. He did not expect Blackwind Island to really take Chu Kuangren's things. What the hell is going on? The aquiline-nosed old man stared at that elder and shouted. He even had the intention to skin that elder alive. You know that Chu Kuangren is powerful and not to be messed with, yet you still went to find trouble with him. Are you not digging your own grave? It doesn't matter if you die, but why drag Blackwind Island into this? The aquiline-nosed old man wanted to cry but no tears came out. Dear sage, this is what happened. When we were capturing the offerings, we caught a merchant ship, and there was a pile of cloud flow ore on it. That elder explained the incident in detail. He looked at Lu Jia, who robbed the merchant ship, with a murderous glare. Of all people to rob, why did you have to rob Chu Kuangren? Lu Jia's face was even paler. He was so scared that his heart was about to burst. He looked at the black-robed cultivator beside him with a murderous glare. It was all because of this guy. If not for his idea to rob the merchant ship, he and Blackwind Island would not have indirectly provoked Chu Kuangren. The black-robed cultivator looked around but could not find anyone. He also looked at Lu Jia with a sullen expression. Can you blame me for this? If you want to blame someone, blame the serpent deity. If not for him wanting the offerings, we would not have gone out to sea to capture people and provoke Chu Kuangren. Quickly take it out. The aquiline-nosed old man shouted at the elder. That elder had no choice but to obediently take out a yin and yang ring. Chu Kuangren sucked it into his hand and used his spiritual thought to activate it. Then, his expression turned cold. You guys are messing with me. The cloud flow or here is not all, there's still more. He wanted 10 million kilograms of top-tier cloud flow ore, and there were only 7 to 8 million kilograms here. Obviously, there were still a few million kilograms left. Sect leader Chu, this is really all the cloud flow ore that we have. We really didn't lie to you, the elder said innocently. Beside him, Lu Jia's face was pale, and his expression kept changing. He did not dare to come out and explain, because he was the one who took the rest of the cloud flow ore. If word got out, the elders would definitely not let him off the hook. Besides, Chu Kuangren still had the sages and the elders to back him up. He was just an insignificant person. No matter what, Chu Kuangren would not implicate him. Besides, the cloud flow ore was hidden so well that Chu Kuangren would never find it. Very good, very good. You didn't lie to me. Chu Kuangren sneered. He activated his treasure locating skill and dashed towards a certain direction. The aquiline-nosed old man and the others followed suit. Soon, the group arrived at a valley. The valley was very quiet and empty. At first glance, there was nothing at all. However, Chu Kuangren came in front of a mountain wall. In the blink of an eye, a sword chi shot out. When the sword chi landed on the mountain wall, it seemed to have hit an invisible barrier. A cave appeared on the mountain wall. It was a maze. The cave was hidden. If one did not pay attention, one would not be able to see anything unusual even if they used their spiritual thoughts to scan it. Hidden inside the cave were a few million kilograms of cloud flow ore. Seeing this, Lu Jia's face turned pale in an instant. The elder's body shuddered. Then, as if he had figured out something, he looked at Lu Jia and roared, "I'll kill you." With a palm attack, Lu Jia was blasted into a mist of blood. Chu Kuangren looked at the scene coldly without a change in his expression. He then kept the remaining cloud flow ore into his yin and yang ring. Then he said, "You robbed my cloud flow ore and even tried to steal a portion of it after I came knocking on your door. How should I settle this score?" Chapter 382. How are we going to settle this? Everyone's eyes widened when they heard Chu Kuangren's words. How are we going to settle this? You've already taken the cloud flow ore and destroyed Ravengale Island with a single palm strike. Shouldn't we be the ones to settle this with you? Chu Kuangren, you can take the cloud flow ore and we won't pursue the matter of you destroying Ravengale Island. Don't you go too far. The old man with the aquiline nose suppressed his anger and said, Pursue? What can you possibly pursue? You guys stole my stuff and made me come all the way here to get it back. You guys even tried to lie to me along the way. Let me ask you this, what can you possibly pursue from me? Chu Kuangren asked coldly as a terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme emanated from his body. His aura was like a mountain as it suppressed the old man with the aquiline nose. Under his aura, the old man's face turned red and his body trembled in anger. Didn't we return everything to you? Besides, it was that disciple who hid the truth from you, not us. What else do you want? Who knows if you guys were the ones who ordered that person to do this? Now that he's exposed and killed by you guys, there's no evidence left. Do you really think I'm a pushover? If you don't give me an explanation today, I won't let this go. Chu Kuangren snorted coldly. The old man with the aquiline nose and the others were dumbfounded. They had never seen such a shameless person before. How could Chu Kuangren be so unreasonable after destroying Ravengale Island with a single palm strike, and now he wanted them to give him an explanation? However, what else could they say when Chu Kuangren was so powerful? State your terms. The old man with the aquiline nose said sullenly. The 1,000,000,000 soul stones. Why don't you just rob us instead? The old man with the aquiline nose said angrily. Bruh, don't think of me as the same as you guys. I'm a very reasonable person and would never do something like this. You. The old man with the aquiline nose was so angry that his body trembled and his face turned pale. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. All right, we'll admit defeat this time. The old man with the aquiline nose had no choice but to agree. They had no choice but to admit defeat. They could not defeat Chu Kuangren anyway. What else could he do? I'll give you 3 months to prepare. If I don't see this batch of soul stones in the Black Heaven sect within 3 months, I'll come again. Chu Kuangren said coldly. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly remembered something. When you robbed the merchant ship, where were those people? Don't tell me they were all killed by you. Chu Kuangren said coldly. No, but they've been sent to the Serpent Deity's Sea region. The hook-nosed old man braced himself and said, Snake Deity's Sea area? That's right. Today is the Serpent God's sacrificial ceremony. Each of the 36 islands needs to prepare at least 10,000 people to sacrifice to the Serpent God. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren could not help but erupt with rage. Tell me, during every sacrificial ceremony, at least hundreds of thousands of people would be eaten by that so-called serpent deity, right? Yes. Did you kidnap all these people? Chu Kuangren, this is the 36 Oceanic Islands' internal affairs. Are you going to interfere in this as well? The hook-nosed old man said coldly. As long as you don't harm the people under my Black Heaven sect's jurisdiction, it doesn't matter. However, these people who transport the cloud flow or are considered to be working for me, so I'm going to interfere in this sacrificial ceremony no matter what. Chu Kuangren said coldly. Are you going to go against the serpent deity of the 36 Oceanic Islands just for a few low-level cultivators and even some common people? The hook-nosed old man was in disbelief. How could this guy always do things that were beyond the comprehension of the world? Cut the crap. Bring me to the serpent deity's sea region. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. All right. I'd like to see what you can do to the serpent deity under the 36 Oceanic Islands' watchful eyes. The hook-nosed old man said coldly. He had his own plans when he agreed to Chu Kuangren's conditions. 1,000,000,000 soul stones was too much for the Ravengale Island. If they could borrow the serpent deity's power, they might be able to take care of Chu Kuangren. When that happened, they would not have to pay soul stones anymore. Let's go. The hook-nosed old man brought Chu Kuangren to the serpent deity's sea region. At this time, somewhere in the sea, 36 gigantic ships slowly gathered, and on each ship was a group of people who were tied up. These people were tied up on the deck, and their faces were ashen. It was as if they had already guessed what would happen to them. In the end, 36 ships gathered together. Greetings, island chieftains. How have you been? The Ravengale Island chieftain greeted the chieftains on the deck. Greetings, Ravengale Island chieftain. Sapphire Island chieftain, these offerings of yours look pretty good. Ha, you're too kind. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands greeted each other. At the same time, they were also secretly observing each other's offerings. Every time they offered a sacrifice, the 36 oceanic islands would secretly compare their offerings. Whoever offered the best would receive the serpent deity's blessing. That was the consensus of the 36 oceanic islands. For example, the previous island chieftain of Ravengale Island, the Ravenblade Sage, sacrificed his companion to the serpent deity in order to become a sage. In return, he received a tribulation treasure and successfully became a sage. Oh, the Sapphire Island chieftain has brought quite a lot of people. Everyone looked at the Sapphire Island chieftain. They saw that the ships of the other party were densely packed with people. There were at least 30 to 40,000 of them, and every single one of them was a strong and muscular man. Many of them were even cultivators. Sob sob, a series of crying sounds could be heard. Everyone looked over and their eyes narrowed. On one of the ships, there were children who looked to be only 7 or 8 years old. These children seemed to have sensed something and were crying loudly. Father, mother, where are you? Sob sob, I want to go home. An old man in a white robe stood on the ship. He held a walking stick in his hand and looked kind and friendly. 3,000 young boys and girls. Sorry for the embarrassment. The old man chuckled. The rest of the chieftains looked at him with fear. 3,000 young boys and girls. TSK, this White Smoke Island chieftain sure is a lunatic to do something like this. I'm impressed. Looks like the White Smoke Island chieftain has come out on top this time. The people on the other ships who were used as sacrifices were livid when they saw the 3,000 young boys and girls. ****Stards. How dare you do such a thing? Those are a bunch of children. Bastards, bastards. You deserve to die 1,000 times. ***CKU. ***Stards. If you still have a shred of conscience, let them go. Come at us if you dare. ***Stards. You will all die a horrible death. However, no matter how much the people cursed, the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands remained unmoved and looked at them coldly. They had long gotten used to this. Every time we offer sacrifices to the serpent deity, these sacrifices are always so noisy. They're like flies. One of the chieftains curled his lips. Let them scold us. It won't take long anyway. Judging by the time, the serpent deity should be here soon. Chapter 383. Amidst the clamor of the crowd, a huge black shadow gradually emerged from the surface of the sea. The chieftains immediately knelt down on the deck respectfully. Soon, a gigantic snake head the size of a small hill emerged from the surface of the sea. It was a greenish-black snake head, with a pair of pale yellow eyes that were cold and merciless. What caught everyone's attention was the peculiar horn that grew on the snake's head. Taoist rhymes swirled around the horn, giving off a terrifying power. The noisy crowd felt as if they had been plunged into an icehouse when they saw the giant snake. They were so frightened that they could not speak. Greetings, serpent deity. Greetings, serpent deity. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands greeted respectfully. The serpent deity ignored them. Its cold eyes swept across the offerings on the 36 ships. When it saw the 3,000 young boys and girls, a look of admiration appeared in its eyes. White Smoke Island chieftain, you've done well. The serpent deity spoke. It sounded like a man's voice, but it was extremely sharp, as if it was about to pierce through one's eardrums. The 3,000 young boys and girls cried even louder when they heard the voice. Thank you for the compliment, serpent deity. As long as the serpent deity is satisfied, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for you, White Smoke Island chieftain said excitedly. Very well. I'm going to enjoy the offerings now. You guys can leave first, the serpent deity said calmly. Yes. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands got up and flew away from the ships. After they left, the serpent deity dove back into the sea. However, a deathly chill filled the entire surface of the sea. Just then, a huge tail emerged from the sea, splashing water as it slammed into one of the ships. With a loud bang, the ship broke apart. Tens of thousands of people fell into the sea, screaming in fear. The serpent deity opened its mouth and sucked one person after another into its mouth. The surface of the sea was instantly dyed red with blood. No, help! Sob, I don't want to die. Cries of agony could be heard from the sea. Some cultivators wanted to resist, but the might of the serpent deity was not something that these low-level cultivators could withstand. The serpent deity devoured people very quickly. With a single breath, it sucked in hundreds of people. It did not even need to chew to swallow them. Before long, tens of thousands of people were buried in the serpent deity's stomach. But this was only the sacrifice for the first ship. To the serpent god, it was just an appetizer. His cold yellow snake eyes looked at the boat carrying the 3,000 boys and girls, and he couldn't help but lick his lips. Let's save the best for last. The serpent god then cast his gaze at the other ship. With a flick of its tail, the ship broke apart. Countless people fell into the water, and screams of fear rose and fell. The scene from before continued to play out. Tens of thousands of cultivators and commoners were devoured by the serpent deity. High up in the air, the island leaders of the 36 islands watched on coldly. There was no trace of pity on their faces. They were used to this. 1 ship, 2 ships, 3 ships, more than 10 large ships sank to the bottom of the sea, and more than 100,000 people were buried in the snake's stomach. At that moment, the serpent deity had already arrived in front of Blackwind Island's ship. Some of the people captured here were the people from the Four Seas trading firm who were escorting the Cloudflow or. At this moment, their faces were filled with despair. I never thought that I would have to pay with my life for just escorting a batch of oars, and in such a manner. Me too. Damn it, I don't want to die yet. An old man had his eyes closed. Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted from his body. While the serpent god was approaching him, he threw a punch with all his might. The punch swept across the sky, creating waves of air. He even used some kind of secret technique that burned his life for this punch. Elder Lu. This old man was the leader of the team that escorted the oars. He was a golden core cultivator, but he was injured by the disciples of Blackwind Island and had been secretly healing himself ever since he was brought to this ship. Now that he had recovered and burned his life, his attack power had reached the nascent soul level. However, when this punch landed on the serpent deity's head, it burst like a bubble. The serpent god merely looked at him playfully, not feeling anything at all. As expected, it's useless. Elder Lu smiled bitterly. How could a mere golden core cultivator like him, who was worshipped by the 36 islands as a god? In the next moment, he was directly swallowed into the serpent god's stomach. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Don't eat me, don't eat me. Angry shouts and pleas for mercy were heard one after another. The entire ship was shrouded in despair. It's over. A young woman closed her eyes, preparing to die. Suddenly, she seemed to hear some kind of rumbling sound. This sound was very prominent in the midst of all the shouting and cursing. She could not help but open her eyes. She saw that the serpent god, who was about to devour everyone, was raising its head and staring at the sky. There was a hint of seriousness in its eyes. The rumbling sound that the young woman heard came from the sky as well. The rumbling sound did not stop. It was as if something was piercing through the sky and was about to break through the void. The island lords looked towards the source of the sound. What is it? There it is. They saw a terrifying wave of air descending from the sky above the serpent god. Upon closer inspection, they realized that it was a sword. It was a beautiful white jade long sword. A sword that caused the island masters of the 36 Isles to suck in a breath of cold air. The beautiful sword pierced through the sky and landed on the serpent god's head with a loud bang. The terrifying force smashed the serpent god's head into the sea, creating a huge pillar of water and waves. The surrounding ships were pushed away by the waves. It's him! Damn it, why is he here? The island lords of the 36 oceanic islands stared at the surface of the sea. The water pillar fell like a rainstorm. Amidst the mist, Everyone could only see a white-robed figure standing on the surface of the water. That person held a beautiful ancient sword in his hand. He was dressed in white and had black hair. His face was so handsome that it did not look like it belonged to this world. It was Chu Kuangren. When he saw the wreckage of dozens of ships and the sea that was dyed red with blood, he knew that he was too late. After all, many people had died in the hands of the serpent god. When he saw the 3,000 wailing boys and girls, an incomparably blazing killing intent surged in his chest. He glanced at the 36 oceanic islands' island lords in the sky. The coldness in his eyes sent chills down their spines. Can anyone tell me what's going on? Why is Chu Kuangren here? One of the island lords asked in fear. Chu Kuangren was too famous in the firmament star. They could even call him the best in the world. I'm the one who brought him here. At that moment, the talon-shaped nose old man appeared in front of everyone. The Ravengale Island Lord's expression changed when he saw him. He hurriedly bowed and asked, "Sage, what's going on?" The talon-shaped nose old man briefly explained what happened. He then said coldly, "Chu Kuangren is too much of a threat. Today is the perfect time for the serpent god to get rid of him." The other island lords breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that. That's right, we still have the serpent god. They knew very well how powerful the serpent god was. Chapter 384. Chu Kuangren stood proudly on the surface of the ocean. He glanced at the ships around him and then took out the elusive mirage. The gigantic elusive mirage appeared on the surface of the ocean, stirring up huge waves. Then, he channeled his spiritual power to lift the ship that carried the 3,000 boys and girls and placed it on the elusive mirage. He did the same thing and placed the rest of the ships on the elusive mirage. With the elusive mirage's size, it could easily fit all of the ships on it. Just as he placed the last ship on the elusive mirage, a gigantic whirlpool suddenly appeared on the surface of the ocean. That whirlpool almost engulfed the entire elusive mirage. The elusive mirage shook violently. The serpent deity wanted to drag the elusive mirage to the bottom of the ocean and devour the remaining offerings. Humph, what a fool! Chu Kuangren snorted. If it were an ordinary ship, even one as big as the elusive mirage, it would have been dragged to the bottom of the ocean by the serpent deity's power. However, the elusive mirage was no ordinary ship. Chu Kuangren had long mastered the elusive mirage, so he activated the defensive formation on it. A gigantic light barrier immediately enveloped the elusive mirage. No matter how the serpent deity manipulated the whirlpool, it could no longer be affected. In the end, the elusive mirage rose into the air and escaped from the whirlpool. Chu Kuangren stood on the surface of the ocean and stared at the whirlpool. He saw a gigantic serpent head slowly stretching out from within. A pair of cold, yellow eyes stared at Chu Kuangren. It had taken a sword attack from Chu Kuangren, but it did not seem to be injured. Only a few scales were missing from its head. Its physical strength was even stronger than the 9-headed snakelets. "Why are you stopping me from eating?" The serpent deity said sharply. "My people are among those you want to eat. Besides, how dare a lowly beast like you eat humans as it pleases? You deserve death. These are my offerings. If you want to find them, go find the ones who sent them here," the serpent deity said coldly. "Of course, after I kill you." "What a joke." "Me." Chu Kuangren said no more. A terrifying surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme erupted from his body as he activated his 3 great Taoist physique. With a slash of the sword, the power of the 10,000 Dharma, the murderous aura, and the sword chi fused together. A dazzling sword light directly split the sea. The snake god narrowed its eyes slightly in the face of the majestic sword. It let out a low roar, and the seawater around it began to boil rapidly. Pillars of water erupted, smashing toward the sword chi with a terrifying impact. Boom, boom, boom. The majestic sword chi collided with the water pillars one after another, and a large amount of water vapor exploded, forming a mist that filled the sky. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to continue his attack, a gigantic tail swung at him from the side. The force of the tail was so great that it could shatter a mountain range. Even a sage's body could not withstand it. Demon subduing palm. Chu Kuangren channeled his spiritual power and the vast Buddhist light transformed into a giant golden hand. The moment the two forces collided, Chu Kuangren felt an unprecedented force shattering the giant golden hand. The snake's tail ruthlessly whipped his body, and a terrifying power exploded, directly crushing his limbs and bones. His entire person turned into minced meat that filled the sky and exploded on the spot. High up in the sky, the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands were dumbfounded at the sight. Chu Kuangren, whose name had shaken the world, had died just like that? As expected of the snake deity. How impressive! Hi, he's too strong. Chu Kuangren is nothing compared to the snake deity. The talon-shaped nose old man was in disbelief. That was Chu Kuangren's, yet he was whipped to death just like that. Why does this feel so unreal? On the surface of the sea, the snake deity could not help but sneer at Chu Kuangren's minced meat. You talk big, but your abilities are not worth mentioning. Suddenly, he sensed that something was not right. Even after Chu Kuangren was killed, the descendant self-sword was still floating on the surface of the sea with strands of sword chi surrounding it. The sword owner is already dead, so why is the sword still so magical? What's going on? Could it be? The snake deity's eyes trembled. Suddenly, it saw the pile of minced meat on the surface of the sea crazily gathering together, forming into a lump of meat. The lump of meat gradually formed into a human figure. It was Chu Kuangren. He was not dead yet. How is this possible? He can still revive after being smashed into pieces? The snake deity was dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren stretched his body and took out a set of clothes from his yin and yang ring to cover his newly reborn body. However, aside from a few female cultivators, no one cared about that. They all looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. Rebirth after being smashed into pieces? Even for a saint, this kind of thing was like a fantasy. The power of the snake deity is indeed something. Chu Kuangren looked at the snake deity and activated his eye of revelation. Hua Shi is an ancient wild beast with a sage ruler cultivation level. Compared to his spiritual power, his physical strength is not to be underestimated. Based on the strength of both parties, the host's chance of winning is less than 10%. Please be careful. Less than 10%. Chu Kuangren smiled and held the descendant's self-sword. But I won't lose either. His eyes lit up with battle intent. His figure turned into a stream of light and a majestic sword chi wrapped around his body as he dashed towards the snake deity. I'd like to see if you're really immortal. The serpent deity roared. A sound wave that felt like it was a solid substance quickly spread as it spat out a water column that contained an extremely powerful force towards Chu Kuangren. Just as Chu Kuangren was about to get close, the sword chi on his body suddenly dissipated and transformed into many sword chi clones. Chu Kuangren then took out the sacred emerald sword case. Countless treasured swords flew out and were distributed to the sword chi clones to attack the serpent deity together. The sky was filled with sword chi as it continuously slashed out. The battle between Chu Kuangren and the serpent deity was extremely intense. The entire ocean shook and tsunamis were set off. Even the islands thousands of miles away were affected, and some smaller islands could not escape the fate of being submerged. Clang! Guqin music rang out. Chu Kuangren sat cross-legged in the void with the descendant self-sword guarding beside him. The lingering song was placed horizontally in front of his knees, and a majestic Guqin Taoist rhyme erupted. The sixth movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, raging waves crashing. The seventh movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, heaven and earth reverberation. The final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, grand note of desolation. 3 terrifying Guqin music waves blasted towards the serpent deity along with waves of seawater. The terrifying energy caused the scales on the serpent deity to crack. Roar! The serpent deity let out a roar, and a terrifying Taoist rhyme that was infused with spiritual power swept out like a tsunami, shattering all the sword chi clones. Then, A large amount of seawater gushed out. Under the serpent deity's control, the seawater surrounded Chu Kuangren and formed a giant water prison that trapped him. The water prison was surrounded by an extremely powerful barrier. Chu Kuangren tried to break through it, but it was to no avail. At that moment, Chu Kuangren felt like he was in the deep sea. "Let's see how you're going to fight me now." The serpent deity laughed and entered the water prison. At that moment, Chu Kuangren finally saw the serpent deity's full appearance. Its body was more than 1,000 feet long, and its entire body was greenish-black with a white abdomen. There was a single horn on its head, and there were some protruding spots on its back. Chu Kuangren knew that those were the serpent deity's hidden wings. The serpent deity was an ancient ferocious beast that loved to eat humans. It had a single horn on its head and a pair of wings on its back. It was a serpent beast that was on par with the 9-headed snakelet. Chapter 385. Die. The serpent deity let out a low growl, and the water in the water prison suddenly turned into invisible restraints that bound Chu Kuangren's limbs. Then, the serpent god charged forward. His physical strength was extremely terrifying. If he were to collide with him, even a mountain peak would be instantly smashed into pieces. Chu Kuangren being smashed into pieces by his tail was the best example. At that moment, a chi barrier appeared out of nowhere on Chu Kuangren's body. A large amount of water power was isolated, and the sword chi penetrated his body, shattering the water that was binding him. Then, his figure turned into a stream of light, dodging the serpent deity's attack. The snake god was a little surprised. "You can actually break free?" It should be known that even a great saint-level existence wouldn't be able to break free from the restraints of water that he had unleashed with his cultivation base. Yet Chu Kuangren, who was below the level of a sage, was able to break free so easily. "That's not right, the energy shield on your body." Suddenly, the serpent deity noticed something. It looked at the force field on Chu Kuangren's body, and a look of realization flashed across its eyes. "I see. I didn't expect you to have a treasure that can isolate the torrential force." He was very surprised and at the same time, a little angry. The reason he activated this water prison was so that Chu Kuangren would have to fight underwater. That way, Chu Kuangren's combat strength would be greatly reduced. That way, he would be able to defeat his opponent faster. He didn't expect the other party to have an artifact that could isolate the flow of water. "There are a lot of things that you can't imagine." Chu Kuangren sneered. The treasure he had on him that could block out the power of water was the water-repellent pearl. In the past, he had relied on this treasure to wreak havoc in the Scaled tribe. He held the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand and activated his 3 Taoist forms, starting a new round of fierce battle with the serpent deity in the water. With his immortal body, he wasn't afraid of the serpent deity's attacks at all, and he fought it head-on. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing art, Tathagata rebirth mantra, heart-piercing finger, raging god's fist, and other monarch techniques were all used as they charged toward the serpent deity. "This is too scary. He's not even a sage yet, but he has so many emperor techniques. Is he a monster? How did he do it?" "Monster? Also, what's with that immortal body?" In the air, the island lords of the 36 oceanic islands were dumbfounded. They knew that Chu Kuangren was powerful, but they never expected him to be this powerful. One emperor technique after another, not to mention a sage, even an emperor might not necessarily have so many emperor techniques. This kid is indeed strong. No wonder he could shake the entire firmament star. However, no matter how strong he is, he can only be defeated by the serpent deity. The aquiline-nosed old man said lightly. When the other island masters heard this, they looked at the battle and agreed with him. No matter what kind of emperor technique Chu Kuangren cast, the serpent deity was able to withstand every single attack with its powerful physical body. At most, he would suffer some light injuries. The serpent deity, who had ruled the seas for so many years and was worshipped as a deity by the 36 islands, was undoubtedly powerful. The serpent deity could be said to be one of the most powerful beings in the entire firmament star. Even the unknown lands would not easily provoke them. Chu Kuangren, Even someone like you will only end up as food for the serpent deity. You will pay the price for your arrogance. The talon-shaped nose old man stared coldly at Chu Kuangren. Inside the water prison, the battle between Chu Kuangren and the serpent deity was in full swing. One of them had an extremely powerful physical body that could withstand an emperor technique head-on. The other had an immortal body that made him fearless. This guy is really unimaginable. His battle prowess has actually reached such a level. I've never heard of such a thing since ancient times. If he's already this strong despite being below the level of a sage, doesn't that mean that he'll be invincible even without an emperor in the future? Terrifying. The serpent deity stared at Chu Kuangren, its yellow eyes filled with an unprecedented cold murderous intent. Against an enemy like Chu Kuangren, it would be a very scary thing if it did not finish him off as soon as possible. Even the serpent deity could not help but feel terrified when it thought of what Chu Kuangren would become in the future. This serpent deity is even harder to deal with than the nine-headed snakelet. Chu Kuangren frowned as he looked at the serpent deity. The nine-headed snakelet's physical body had been destroyed for many years, and it did not even have half of its original strength when it first came back to life. However, this serpent deity was a true sage ruler. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Should he use the soul retriever? No way. His opponent was a sage ruler. His soul was extremely powerful and he was not injured either. His state of mind was at its peak. If he used the soul retriever, his spiritual power would be depleted before he could hook his opponent's soul out. Should he use the four-season sword formation? That was unlikely. With his current strength, even if he used the strongest form of the four-season sword formation, he would not be able to hurt his opponent. Not to mention that the force of water in this water prison would affect the sword formation, making it difficult for him to maximize its power. Young lad, your immortal body is indeed strange, but I can tell that your strength is limited even though you're immortal. I'll seal you into the deep sea and make you my prisoner. Then, I'll slowly figure out a way to kill you. The serpent deity said coldly as a large amount of Taoist rhymes surged from its body. The entire water prison merged into the sea, and at the same time, an extremely powerful force dragged Chu Kuangren into the deep sea. Not long after, Chu Kuangren was dragged hundreds of kilometers into the sea by the serpent deity and arrived at a huge oceanic trench. Within this oceanic trench, there were specks of light circulating. They were all crystals and supreme elixirs that emitted rich spiritual power. There was a large number of treasures in the sea here. You're surprised, aren't you? The sea is far more vast and mysterious than you can imagine. Even the scaled tribe, who are known as the rulers of the sea, have only explored the tip of the iceberg. However, I'm different. I'm the serpent deity. I'm the strongest existence in the sea. The sea is like my backyard. I can go wherever I want and take whatever I want. These are the treasures that I've collected from the sea. There's a coral tree that can double one's cultivation speed, a shell that can withstand heavenly lightning, a supreme elixir that can help one break through realms easily. The serpent deity excitedly showed Chu Kuangren its collection. It was not worried that Chu Kuangren could take these things away. To it, Chu Kuangren was already a sitting duck. The 36 oceanic islands sacrificed themselves to you for these treasures, right? Chu Kuangren said as he looked at the treasures in the oceanic trench. That's right. They've captured these sacrifices for me. If anyone performs well, I'll give them some of the treasures that I don't want. It's all thanks to me that the 36 oceanic islands can reach such heights today. The serpent deity laughed as it dragged Chu Kuangren towards the oceanic trench. Soon, they arrived at the deepest part of the oceanic trench. There was a huge cage that looked like a bird cage, and there were strange black patterns flowing on it. I obtained this cage 10,000 years ago. It must be a treasure left behind by a powerful cultivator. It has a terrifying sealing power that even a sage ruler would be sealed inside. Kid, you can stay in there for the rest of your life. The serpent deity laughed before it channeled a majestic torrential force and forcefully stuffed Chu Kuangren into the cage. Chapter 386. Rays of strange light blossomed from within the black cage, and the countless strange runes engraved on it began to circulate. A terrifying sealing force appeared. Chu Kuangren felt as if the spiritual power within his body was being suppressed. When he slashed with his sword, the power that he could display was actually not even a tenth of it. The rest was completely suppressed by the cage. That's not possible. This cage can even seal a holy king, let alone a small person like you who has yet to become a sage. The serpent deity looked at Chu Kuangren with its yellow eyes and smiled. Kid, you should also become part of my collection. You should feel honored to be able to spend the rest of your life with so many treasures. The serpent god laughed. I didn't expect you to be a collector. Chu Kuangren could not help but chuckle at the serpent deity's words. Brat, you're actually still able to laugh under such circumstances? I can't help but admire you. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have an undying body? You won't die, but there are many ways to torture people in this world. Don't worry, I will use them on you one by one. The serpent deity coiled its body and stared at Chu Kuangren with its huge yellow eyes, revealing a bloodthirsty, cruel, and murderous intent. He wanted to see fear on Chu Kuangren's face, but unfortunately, Chu Kuangren's gaze remained calm from the beginning to the end. It was like a cold pond, without ripples since ancient times. His eyes met the snake god's. The snake god was clearly the stronger party, but for some reason, he felt a little flustered. It's impossible for this fellow to escape from this cage. I must be overthinking things. I'll just lock him up here for now. The snake god thought to himself. Then, it turned around and was about to leave the trench. But at this moment, Chu Kuangren suddenly spoke from behind him. You have so many treasures here. Is there even a single emperor weapon? Upon hearing this, the serpent god was a little confused. Why are you still concerned about this at a time like this? Imperial weapons are hard to come by. How can they be so easily obtained? To be honest, I haven't found a single imperial weapon in the tens of thousands of years I've been in the deep sea. But what does that have to do with you? Snake God sneered. Sigh, what a pity. You'd better feel sorry for yourself. You're a great genius. You'll have to spend the rest of your days in the deep sea. You should feel honored. That's because you've never obtained an imperial armament in all these years. However, today, you're fortunate enough to experience one. Chu Kuangren said as he raised his hand and clenched the void. A golden trident appeared in Chu Kuangren's hand, and an incredibly terrifying emperor's aura spread across the ocean. The cage that imprisoned him was shaking violently. The runes on it cracked one by one, and the sealing power was constantly disintegrating. The serpent god's eyes widened. Imperial weapon. He was stunned. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to have an emperor weapon in his possession. An emperor weapon was extremely rare, even in the unknown lands. To think that Chu Kuangren had an emperor weapon in his possession. I'll show you the might of a monarch weapon. Chu Kuangren gripped the trident in his hand and struck it fiercely. A terrifying domineering aura suddenly exploded, causing the entire ocean to tremble violently. Countless streams of water surrounded Chu Kuangren, obeying his command as they continuously attacked the cage that was imprisoning him. Countless runes shattered one by one. In the end, with a loud bang, the cage that was imprisoning Chu Kuangren completely exploded, turning into pieces of debris that scattered everywhere. That's the Sea King's halberd. It's the Scaled Tribe's Sea King's halberd. Rumor has it that this emperor weapon was split into 3 and disappeared a long time ago. How did you get it? The serpent god was horrified. Having been in the ocean for so many years, he knew many of its secrets. Naturally, that included the rumors about the Scaled Tribe's Sea King's halberd. Even though he was a sage ruler, he was nothing in front of an emperor weapon. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to have such a precious treasure. He did not expect the emperor weapon to be the long-lost Sea King's halberd. I've never used this Sea King's halberd ever since I refined it. Today, I'll use you to test it out. Chu Kuangren said coldly. With the Sea King's halberd in hand, his aura increased exponentially. The seawater surged as if the entire ocean was cheering for him. At that moment, he no longer needed the water evasion pearl. because the ocean no longer posed any threat to him. The power of the Sea King's halberd was to control the ocean. With the Sea King's halberd in hand, Chu Kuangren dashed towards the serpent god. His speed was 3 times faster than when he was on land. With a swing of the halberd, an endless torrential force surrounded it. It was as if the force of the entire ocean was imbued into the serpent god's body. Amidst the explosion, the serpent god's scales shattered and blood splattered everywhere. Since the beginning of the battle, this was the first time the serpent god had suffered a serious injury, and it was all from a single strike of the halberd. D***. So what if it's the Sea King's halberd? I'm the serpent god. The serpent god roared and let out a piercing shriek. Its Taoist rhyme was pushed to its limit as its 1,000-meter-long body tumbled in the ocean. A terrifying torrential force then slammed towards Chu Kuangren. That attack was incredibly shocking. Even a peak great sage would not be able to withstand it. However, Chu Kuangren held the trident halberd in his hand and pointed it at the incoming torrential force. A mysterious Taoist rhyme then emerged. Shatter! With a soft shout, that powerful torrential force suddenly dissipated. Wielding the Sea King's halberd means that I control the ocean. What can this bit of torrential force do to me? Chu Kuangren sneered and raised his hand to activate the Sea King's halberd. He then said, I'll show you what the wrath of the ocean looks like. With a wave of the Sea King's halberd, the surrounding water surged and formed into a gigantic whirlpool that surrounded the serpent god. These whirlpools contained a powerful tearing force. Even the serpent god's powerful body could not help but crack in the whirlpools. Pieces of its scales broke and a large amount of blood gushed out. Ah! The serpent god let out a shrill scream. It looked at Chu Kuangren in horror. The emperor weapon's power was too terrifying. Even a sage ruler like it could not fight against it. If this went on, it would be the serpent god that would be buried in the ocean. Run! The serpent god let out a low roar before the horn on its head unleashed an intense Taoist rhyme. The whirlpools around it were temporarily sealed by that surge of energy. Then, a pair of fleshy wings spread out from the serpent god's back before it flew towards the ocean. Trying to escape? No way! A cold glare shot out from Chu Kuangren's eyes. If I don't strip your snake skin and turn it into a gunny sack, I'm not Chu Kuangren anymore. Torrential force emerged from beneath his feet and propelled him towards the ocean surface to chase after the serpent god. Above the ocean, the 36 oceanic chieftains and the talon-shaped nose old man were staring at the ocean surface with bewildered expressions. This was because they had just felt a powerful surge of Emperor's aura, and then the entire ocean started to surge. It was a terrifying sight to behold. That surge of energy must be the serpent god's doing. Chu Kuangren has offended the serpent god, so he must die. That's right. It must be the serpent god. The chieftains said with anticipation in their eyes. At that moment, a huge black shadow appeared on the ocean surface. The serpent god with wings on its back had suddenly emerged from the ocean surface. The serpent god. It's the serpent god. Chapter 387. The serpent deity broke out of the sea and soared into the sky. The people of the 36 oceanic islands could not help but exclaim, "It's the serpent deity! It's the serpent deity!" However, they soon realized that something was not right. It was too pathetic. The serpent deity was in a pathetic state. Its scales were broken, and there were cracks all over its body. Large amounts of blood were dripping from it. It was their first time seeing the serpent deity in such a state. They were all dumbfounded. Needless to say, the person who caused the serpent deity to be in such a state must be Chu Kuangren. The people could not believe that Chu Kuangren could force the serpent deity into such a state. What did he do? The talon-shaped nose old man gulped. He initially wanted to use the serpent deity's strength to kill Chu Kuangren, but it seemed like he had made the wrong decision. Not to mention using the serpent deity's strength to kill Chu Kuangren, it seemed like the serpent deity could not even protect itself now. Was Chu Kuangren really that terrifying? Boom! At that moment, the ocean shook. A giant water pillar shot into the sky, and Chu Kuangren was standing on top of it with his trident in hand. He stared coldly at the serpent deity that was flying towards the clouds. With a swing of his trident, multiple water pillars erupted and shot into the sky like water dragons that coiled around the serpent deity. The serpent god roared and used its powerful body to charge around, shattering the streams of water. However, even if it could break the water pillars, it could not get too far away from the ocean, let alone escape. B****, let me leave. Do you really want to fight me to the death? The serpent deity let out a sharp roar. The people of the 36 oceanic islands were shocked to hear that. They felt goosebumps all over their bodies. The serpent deity was trying to escape. It was trying to escape from Chu Kuangren. This news was too shocking to them. To the people of the 36 oceanic islands, the serpent deity was their god. It could be said that without the serpent deity, the 36 oceanic islands would not have developed to where they were today. Hence, they respected the serpent deity like a god. Even the sages listened to the serpent deity. Yet now, their deity was trying to escape from Chu Kuangren. It was just too unbelievable. This almost caused their worldview to collapse. A life and death struggle? You're not fit to fight me to the death. I've said that I'll skin you alive and turn you into a sack, so you must die here. Chu Kuangren sneered as he activated the Empyrean Neptune's trident halberd. Streams of even more majestic water surged toward the serpent god. The entire sea was boiling, and countless sea creatures were trembling. That was Chu Kuangren's rage. Now, it was also the anger of the entire ocean. Bastard! You forced me to do this. The infuriated serpent deity roared, and the Taoist rhymes on its body exploded. Its yellow eyes gradually became bloodshot, and a terrifying murderous aura erupted from the serpent deity, sweeping in all directions. Oh, forcefully using a secret technique to increase your strength? So what? Chu Kuangren sneered. Disregarding external factors, Chu Kuangren only had a 10% chance of winning against the serpent deity. However, with the Empyrean Neptune's halberd, his chances of winning had skyrocketed to almost 100%. This was the terror of a monarch weapon. The serpent deity let out a shrill roar, and a powerful Taoist rhyme spread out, shattering a giant water column. Then, it dashed toward a certain direction. That was where the elusive mirage was located. The serpent deity knew very well that even if it used some kind of secret technique, it was still no match for Chu Kuangren with the Empyrean Neptune's trident halberd. Hence, it decided to use the hundreds of thousands of cultivators and civilians on the elusive mirage as a threat to force Chu Kuangren to let it leave. It believed that humans were all hypocrites, especially a righteous person like Chu Kuangren. He would definitely be threatened, especially when there were 3,000 young boys and girls on the elusive mirage. Oh no, the serpent deity is here. The hundreds of thousands of cultivators and civilians on the elusive mirage were terrified. However, when the serpent deity approached, it crashed into an invisible barrier that blocked him outside. Although the elusive mirage was shaken, it was unharmed. The hundreds of thousands of people on it were also unharmed. How could this be? The serpent deity was dumbfounded. The serpent deity was well aware of his own strength. Even 10 mountains would have been obliterated by that one crash, yet it was blocked by the elusive mirage's defensive barrier. How could the elusive mirage's defensive formation be so terrifying? What a fool. Chu Kuangren snorted. The elusive mirage was a top-notch starlight-grade item, and the defensive formation on it was also a top-notch sage-grade formation. Moreover, it did not require Chu Kuangren to control it. As long as the elusive mirage had enough power, it would be able to unleash its full potential. Although the serpent deity was powerful, it could not break through this sage-grade formation. Now die. Chu Kuangren let out a low roar, and blood-red flames suddenly ignited on his body. The 9 deaths blazing blood art activated. Chu Kuangren channeled a large amount of spiritual power into the Empyrean Neptune's trident halberd, allowing him to summon more oceanic force. A large amount of water gushed out from the ocean and gradually formed into a ferocious and powerful water dragon in the sky. The water dragon was tens of thousands of meters long, and its terrifying domineering aura filled the air. Every cultivator at the scene, including sages like the talon-shaped nose old man, trembled in fear. In front of the water dragon, the serpent deity's 1,000-meter body seemed tiny. No. The serpent deity was terrified. After devouring countless living beings for so many years, the serpent deity, who had always been fearful of others, finally felt fear. An unprecedented sense of fear. Die! Chu Kuangren waved his halberd, and the water dragon roared and swallowed the serpent deity with a surge of water pressure. The serpent deity, who had always eaten others, swallowed something else for the first time in its life. Meanwhile, inside the water dragon's body, the terrifying water waves ravaged and destroyed its body. Its scales, bones, and flesh were all broken, and a large amount of fresh blood dyed the water dragon red. In the end, the water dragon collapsed and fell back into the ocean, causing a huge explosion and a huge tsunami to spread in all directions. Meanwhile, the serpent deity was floating on the surface of the ocean. With the Empyrean Neptune's halberd in hand, Chu Kuangren approached the serpent deity. "Kid, you're too much of a monster. This world will never tolerate you. Your fate will be 1,000,000 times worse than mine." The serpent deity looked at Chu Kuangren and said in a hoarse voice, "I was the one who couldn't tolerate this world, but now I can't tolerate you either." Chu Kuangren snorted and unleashed the soul retriever. The chain pierced into the serpent deity's body and slowly pulled out its soul, which had become extremely weak due to the imminent death of its physical body. "Enjoy the agony of the soul." Chu Kuangren gently tugged on the soul retriever, and a surge of chilling energy erupted, continuously eroding the serpent deity's soul. A shrill scream reverberated through the air, and finally, the serpent deity's soul shattered into countless soul light dots. Just as these soul light dots were about to vanish, Chu Kuangren activated his universal cauldron physique and absorbed these soul light dots into his body. The universal cauldron physique could absorb all kinds of strange energies between heaven and earth. Souls were also a type of strange energy. Chapter 388. Even in a weakened state, a sage ruler's soul energy was still extremely majestic. Just like the demonic liquid, this energy was stored within Chu Kuangren's body, waiting for him to form the supreme sage foundation level in the future. After that, Chu Kuangren tossed the serpent deity's corpse into his yin and yang ring. Including the 9-headed snakelet from before, Chu Kuangren now had 2 sage ruler corpses in his possession. Not to mention the boundary emperor's body that he had obtained from the unnamed island. These were all important materials for him to form the supreme sage foundation level in the future. Now, only you are left. Chu Kuangren looked at the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands. His eyes were as cold as ice and filled with murderous intent. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands wanted to leave but found that they could not move. "Chu Kuangren, what do you want?" The hook-nosed old man gulped and said. Since even the serpent deity had been killed by Chu Kuangren, none of them dared to challenge Chu Kuangren at all. Too terrifying, this young man in front of him was too terrifying. Throughout the ages, there wasn't a single person like him. "All of you kill yourselves?" Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Hearing this, everyone's pupils shrank. "Chu Kuangren, please spare us." One of the island lords begged for mercy. "That's right, Chu Kuangren. We have no enmity with you, so there's no need for you to become enemies with us for the sake of these commoners. The 36 islands have many sages as well. Chu Kuangren, do you really have to go this far?" The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands spoke one after another. Chu Kuangren said indifferently, "If you kill yourselves now, your orthodoxies may be spared. If you resist, the 36 oceanic islands shall perish in the ocean." As soon as Chu Kuangren finished speaking, the entire ocean began to roar and surge, setting off huge waves as if it was responding to his words. With the Empyrean Neptune's halberd in his hand, Chu Kuangren was the ruler of the ocean. No one beneath the Emperor realm could fight him at sea. Since the 36 oceanic islands were located in the outer seas, Chu Kuangren was no longer afraid of the bottomless chasm. Hearing his words, the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands turned ashen. After witnessing Chu Kuangren's capabilities, none of them doubted Chu Kuangren's words. He truly had the ability to do it. Chu Kuangren, are you sure you won't even give us a chance? An island lord said unwillingly. Swoosh! At that moment, a white figure dashed towards Chu Kuangren at a speed no slower than a sage. It was the White Smoke Island Lord. His originally benevolent face was now filled with malevolence. With a dagger in his hand, he swung it at Chu Kuangren. That dagger contained some kind of poison that could even kill a sage. Chu Kuangren, die. The White Smoke Island Lord said in a frenzy. However, Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes and moved the Empyrean Neptune's halberd in his hand. A powerful torrent of water burst forth, forming a huge water ball that enveloped White Smoke Island Lord. No matter how hard White Smoke Island Lord struggled, it was all to no avail. He was like a drowning man, flailing his arms and legs about as if he was trying to grab onto something. Chu Kuangren reached his hand into the water ball and grabbed the dagger in his opponent's hand. Then he slowly stabbed it into his opponent's chest. The poison erupted, and White Smoke Island Lord's face instantly turned purple. Blood flowed from all 7 of his orifices, and he breathed his last within moments. In the end, he died under his own poisonous blade. Which island does he belong to? Chu Kuangren asked. The other island lords looked at each other. In the end, one of the island lords could no longer withstand the terrifying pressure that filled the void. With a trembling voice, he said, "By White Smoke Island. White Smoke Island. I understand now." The crowd was puzzled, not knowing what Chu Kuangren was trying to do. However, he suddenly closed his eyes, and his spiritual thoughts spread out like a tidal wave. With the help of the Empyrean Neptune's halberd, not only could his spiritual thoughts see the entire ocean, but he could even hear the sounds of the ocean. Soon, he locked onto the location of White Smoke Island. It looked like an immortal island, but under the coverage of Chu Kuangren's spiritual thoughts, he could see that the inside of the island was filthy. The cultivators were all scheming against each other, and some were even cultivating various evil techniques. He even saw an elder using children to refine medicinal pills. An immortal island? No, it was a demonic den. A demonic den that was even more evil than the other demonic orthodoxies. Perish, Chu Kuangren said calmly. That one sentence set off a terrifying tsunami from thousands of kilometers away, rushing towards White Smoke Island. The cultivators of White Smoke Island were terrified when they sensed it. What's going on? The White Smoke Island sage rushed out and looked at the gigantic tsunami in horror. Quick, activate the island's protective formation. The White Smoke Island sage yelled. A gigantic white light barrier enveloped White Smoke Island. However, it was useless. Under the terrifying tsunami, White Smoke Island's protective formation was like a bubble. The moment it came into contact with the tsunami, it shattered and vanished into thin air. The entire White Smoke Island was submerged in the ocean. In just a few breaths' time, the island was destroyed, and countless disciples were killed by the tsunami. The White Smoke Island sage was not faring well either. He was severely injured by the tsunami. His hair was disheveled, and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. He stared at the ocean before him with hatred. But what did White Smoke Island do wrong? Serpent deity, why didn't you protect us? He would never have guessed that White Smoke Island was in such dire straits just because the White Smoke Island Lord wanted to live. The serpent deity that he spoke of had died under Chu Kuangren's halberd. One tsunami, and White Smoke Island was no more. And all of this was because of a single thought from Chu Kuangren, who was thousands of kilometers away. The destruction of White Smoke Island had attracted the attention of the other 36 oceanic island sages. One by one, their spiritual thoughts searched the ocean, trying to find the cause of the tsunami. In the serpent deity's oceanic domain, the talon-shaped nose old man opened his eyes in horror. White Smoke Island is gone. The remaining chieftains were terrified to the core. Their bodies trembled as they stared at Chu Kuangren as if he was a demon. They knew that it was all Chu Kuangren's doing, With the divine Neptune's halberd in hand, Chu Kuangren was like a deity that could control the entire ocean. He could even destroy an island from thousands of kilometers away. Chu Kuangren, you're a demon. You destroyed White Smoke Island for these sacrifices. That's hundreds of thousands of lives. One of the chieftains could not help but ask, so what? The serpent deity's sacrificial ceremony has been held many times, hasn't it? The number of people you've sacrificed to the serpent deity is more than millions. Chu Kuangren said coldly. None of the chieftains could refute his words. I'll give you one last chance. Kill yourselves, or I'll unleash a few more tsunamis. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. All of you kill yourselves? At that moment, a voice came from the void. One of the chieftains' expression changed. It's a sage. Kill yourselves. Kill yourselves. One voice after another rang out from the void. Those were the voices of the 36 Oceanic Island sages. With each voice, the chieftains' faces turned paler. In the end, their faces were drained of all color, and their hearts were dead silent. Even their sages wanted them dead. Chapter 389. Kill yourself. Kill yourself. Voices rang out one after another in the air. These were all the sages of the 36 Oceanic Islands. They had already investigated the whole story and were terrified of Chu Kuangren's power. In order to protect their orthodoxies, they had no choice but to let these chieftains commit suicide. The chieftains of the 36 Oceanic Islands were pale and bloodless. If Chu Kuangren wanted them dead, they would only feel resentful. But now, their own sages wanted them to die, and they felt a sense of sorrow from the depths of their souls. It turned out that the greatest pain did not come from the enemy. Instead, it was the betrayal of their own people. Chu Kuangren, I admit defeat this time. If anything happens to Green Jade Island, I'll haunt you even if I become a ghost. The Lord of Green Jade Island laughed out loud. His body exuded a strong sense of sorrow. Following that, his body expanded abruptly. With a loud explosion, the Lord of Green Jade Island turned into a mist of blood that filled the sky. Seeing this, the rest of the island masters showed signs of struggle in their eyes. However, under such circumstances, resistance was useless. Chu Kuangren wanted them dead. The saint wanted them dead. How could they, the Supremes, resist? He might as well be more straightforward. Chu Kuangren, if you dare to harm a single hair on my Peony Island, I won't let you go either. The island lord of Peony Island shouted coldly. Then, with a delicate shout, she also self-detonated after the island lord of Cyan Jade Island. Chu Kuangren, I shall seek revenge on you in my next life. I never thought I would end up like this. Ridiculous, ridiculous. One after another, the island masters self-destructed. There were also those who were indignant and wanted to escape. One of the island masters turned into a stream of light and flew into the distance. However, he was slapped back by a majestic palm chi. That palm chi did not come from Chu Kuangren but from a sage. Kill yourself. Don't force me to take action. The saint's cold voice came from the void. The island master's heart was like dead ashes. In the end, he could only clench his teeth and self-detonate. Very soon, the 36 island masters were all dead. As Chu Kuangren witnessed the scene unfold, he too suffered the curses of some of the chieftains before they died. However, his expression did not change from the beginning to the end. Chu Kuangren, let's end this matter here. The voice of a saint resounded from the void of space. Chu Kuangren suddenly held his forehead and let out a burst of laughter. The sages did not know what he meant. Sage, this is a sage? Everyone in the world says that a saint is the pillar of orthodoxy. Today is the first time I've seen a saint forcing his own people to die. Is this the so-called saint, the so-called pillar of heaven? It's so funny. The sages fell silent. In other words, they were so angry that they couldn't speak. On the surface of the ocean, only Chu Kuangren's maniacal laughter and the hundreds of thousands of cultivators and commoners were left in shock. Chu Kuangren laughed so hard that tears were about to come out of his eyes. Enough! The furious voice of a sage came from the void. Chu Kuangren's laughter was extremely piercing to their ears, and every single word he said was like a stab to their hearts. It was obvious that Chu Kuangren was the one who forced her to do this. In the end, he was still making fun of them. This was the so-called killing one's heart. Chu Kuangren's laughter gradually subsided, and the surface of the sea also gradually calmed down. He kept his Empyrean Neptune's halberd, turned around, and dashed towards the elusive mirage. Before he left, he was still mumbling something. A voice echoed in the air. A sage? F***CKU sages? Those words were heard by the sages of the 36 oceanic islands. Many sages' Taoist core almost collapsed on the spot. On one of the islands, a terrifying aura erupted, and a mountain range was forcefully shattered. An old man walked out from it, staring into the distance with bloodshot eyes. His expression was as ferocious as a demon. Chu Kuangren, he gritted his teeth in extreme hatred. However, when he thought of Chu Kuangren's terrifying strength, a sense of helplessness welled up in his heart, and it was mixed with anger. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. In the end, he spat out a mouthful of blood and almost fainted. How can such a person exist in this world? In the 36 oceanic islands, there was more than one sage who spat out blood like the old man, and some of them even had their Taoist core collapsed. Chu Kuangren, goddamn Chu Kuangren. Ah, Chu Kuangren, you will die a horrible death. I hate you. Dear heavens, why do you allow someone like Chu Kuangren to exist in this world? He is an anomaly that cannot be tolerated by the heavens. Even the serpent deity was killed by him. What a pity! The 36 oceanic islands' disciples were extremely confused. Why did the sages, who were rarely seen, suddenly unleash such intense energy fluctuations? Moreover, there was also a sense of helplessness and anger in those fluctuations. Who was it? Who made the sages so angry but helpless? On this day, the entire ocean was in turmoil. Chu Kuangren returned to the elusive mirage. Hundreds of thousands of cultivators were excited and looked at him with admiration. However, he ignored them and went straight to a room, where he activated the seal that was previously placed in that room. When he was done, Chu Kuangren's face turned pale, and his body went limp as he sat on the bed. F***ck me, Emperor weapons really shouldn't be used so casually. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and said, while imperial armaments were very powerful, the burden of forcibly using them with his cultivation was not to be looked down upon. Just this time, he had almost exhausted all of his spiritual power. However, his spiritual power was secondary. After all, his gluttonous devouring technique could convert blood and flesh essences to quickly recover, but it was more of a burden on his mind. Using an emperor weapon was equivalent to using the emperor's aura, which was a huge challenge to a cultivator's Taoist rhyme, Taoist core, and spiritual will. I'm lucky to be able to fool them this time. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and murmured. He took out a few medicinal pills and consumed them to recover his spiritual power. As for his mind, both his mind and spiritual thoughts originated from his soul, and there were very few soul techniques on Firmament Star. Soul power could only be improved through the improvement of one's cultivation realm, so even Chu Kuangren could only wait for his recovery. There were some treasures that could improve soul power, but those were extremely rare, and Chu Kuangren did not have them yet. Chu Kuangren spent 3 days recovering his spiritual power, and the rest of the time was used to recover his mind. It was not until 3 days later that Chu Kuangren finally walked out of his room. As soon as he walked out, he was met with hundreds of thousands of cultivators who knelt on the ground when they saw him. Thank you, Sect Leader Chu, for saving our lives. Thank you, Sect Leader Chu, for saving our lives. Hundreds of thousands of people knelt in front of Chu Kuangren and looked at him emotionally. The 3,000 young boys and girls did not cry anymore. Instead, they knelt on the ground with the adults around them and looked at Chu Kuangren with curiosity in their clear eyes. Get up, everyone, Chu Kuangren said calmly. When he saw that some of them were injured, he casually cast the spring breeze healing technique. As the spring breeze blew, some of the injured people began to recover. Chapter 390. With Chu Kuangren's help, some of the injured cultivators began to recover. Then, Chu Kuangren asked, "Who's from the Four Seas Merchant Guild?" "We're the escorts from the guild." At that moment, a few people walked out one after another. Chu Kuangren glanced at them and said, "All right, send a message to Boss Qian. Tell him to wait for me at a nearby prefecture." "Boss Qian? Which Boss Qian?" The few of them looked at each other. With their status, they didn't even know Qian Fugui, the head manager behind the scenes of the Chamber of Commerce, let alone contact him. "Forget it, I'll talk to him myself," Chu Kuangren said. Then, he looked at the bottom of the sea with a glint in his eyes. He licked his lips and dived deeper into the sea. With the help of the water evasion pearl, he soon arrived at the trench where the serpent deity hid his treasures. Looking at the countless treasures in the sea, he smiled. "Serpent deity, I'll gladly accept this." These sea treasures had been plundered by the serpent deity over the years. They were too valuable. Even if all the resources of the 36 islands were added up, they might not be able to match up to half of these treasures. This was definitely one of the largest treasure vaults in the firmament star. Chu Kuangren searched the trench and threw the treasures into his yin and yang ring. The rewards were unimaginable. What's this?" Suddenly, Chu Kuangren looked at the light blue coral-like supreme treasure herb in his hand. He could not help but feel surprised. There were many treasures in the sea that he did not recognize. The reason why he paid attention to this supreme treasure herb was because it gave him a strange fluctuation. Whenever he got close to it, he would feel refreshed. That feeling seemed to originate from his soul. Could this supreme treasure herb have an effect on the soul? Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Even an alchemy grandmaster like me can't recognize this supreme treasure herb. Then he used his treasure locating skill to sense it. He found out the name of this supreme treasure herb. Soul nourishing herb. Soul nourishing, soul nourishing. It seemed like it really was a supreme treasure herb that had an effect on the soul. Chu Kuangren carefully put it away. After a round of looting, Chu Kuangren left in satisfaction. He returned to the elusive mirage and left the sea with the others. In a Dao province outside the sea, Qian Fugui had long received Chu Kuangren's message, so he had brought some people to wait here. When they saw the gigantic elusive mirage, they immediately went up to greet it. Sect leader Chu. Qian Fugui glanced at the hundreds of thousands of people behind Chu Kuangren, especially the 3,000 young boys and girls. A hint of anger flashed across his eyes. That serpent god and the 36 islands are truly despicable. They would even lay their hands on children. Qian Fugui cursed. He had also learned about the matter of sacrificing the serpent god. "I've already obtained the cloud flow or..." "Thank you, Boss Qian. Also, I'll leave these people to you." Chu Kuangren said. "No problem. Leave it to me." Qian Fugui patted his chest and said, he had many connections and channels, and his business was spread all over the country. It was easy for him to settle these people down. "All right, that's all for now." Chu Kuangren nodded and was about to leave. "Take care, benefactor." "Farewell, benefactor." "Farewell, benefactor." The hundreds of thousands of people and cultivators behind Chu Kuangren said. The 3,000 young boys and girls looked at Chu Kuangren's departing figure with yearning in their eyes. One of the boys said, "In the future, I want to become a powerful cultivator like you, benefactor. I want to protect everyone." "Me too." "Me too." Black Heaven Sect. Chu Kuangren went into a busy state the moment he returned. The cloud flow ore and celestial chalcedony were already in place. All that was left was to set up the astonishing cloud of seas formation. However, this formation was extremely mysterious. Even with the blueprint, he had only managed to set up 1/10 of it after a few days. "This formation is too mysterious and I don't know much about it. Besides, there aren't many people in the Black Heaven sect who know how to set up formations. This is going to be difficult." Chu Kuangren shook his head. He did not want to look for people in the outside world. If he did that, he could not guarantee that they would not leak the core secrets of the formation. Just like that, Chu Kuangren studied the formation by himself while he set up the astonishing cloud of seas formation. Fortunately, he had an amazing level of comprehension. Under such circumstances, he was able to learn by himself and improve by leaps and bounds. The speed at which he set up the formation increased. About a month later, he had completed the astonishing cloud of seas formation. It's finally done. Chu Kuangren stood on top of a mountain peak. His spiritual thoughts surged and covered a radius of 10,000 kilometers around the Black Heaven sect. Within 10,000 kilometers, every node of the astonishing cloud of seas formation could be seen. As long as he gave the command, this emperor-grade formation could be activated. With this formation around, the safety of the Black Heaven sect can be guaranteed. Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction as he felt a weight lifted off his shoulders. He was now at the cusp of the storm, and he could be targeted by the unknown lands at any time. It would not have mattered if he was alone, but he could not. He still had the Black Heaven sect behind him. If the unknown lands attacked the Black Heaven sect, it would be difficult for the Black Heaven sect to defend themselves. Now that he had this formation, he could deal with the unknown lands easily even if they attacked. Let's do a lucky draw to celebrate. Chu Kuangren grinned. Congratulations, host. You've obtained the legendary item, Elysium Emperor Scripture. Another Emperor Scripture. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He looked at his inventory and then set up a few restrictions around it before retrieving the Emperor Scripture. In an instant, a thick Emperor's aura spread out. However, because of the restrictions that Chu Kuangren had set up, it did not spread out. He began to flip through the Emperor Scripture. This is a Talisman Emperor Scripture? Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. The Elysium Emperor Scripture came from an emperor known as the Great Elysium Emperor. This Great Elysium Emperor used talismans to become an emperor, so the Emperor Scriptures that he left behind were mostly related to various kinds of runes. Chu Kuangren had long studied the Tao of runes. He knew how mysterious it was, and he had always been looking forward to it. Now that he had this Emperor Scripture, he could learn it. In the following days, Chu Kuangren went into closed-door meditation again. Until 3 days later, Firmament Star suddenly trembled. A giant palace suddenly appeared out of thin air. After various investigations, it was found that this palace was related to the Qian Emperor. The Qian Emperor was the last emperor recorded in Firmament Star. Now that a palace that was related to him had appeared, the entire Firmament Star was shaken. Many people rushed over to investigate. Even the unknown lands could not resist such temptation. The Qian Emperor Palace has finally appeared. The rumors are true. The emperors really did leave behind all kinds of opportunities of fortune in Firmament Star. When the time is right, they will appear one by one. This era of great battles is reaching its peak. Opportunities don't come again. The Qian Emperor Palace is the first emperor's opportunity of fortune. Whoever can occupy it first will have the advantage in the subsequent emperor's opportunities of fortune. This palace must not be missed. The unknown lands began to make their moves. All the Empyrean walkers flocked to the Qian Emperor Palace. Inside the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren had also come out from his closed-door meditation. Chapter 391. The Qian Emperor Palace has reappeared. Chu Kuangren took out the jade amulet that he got from Yuan Wudao. The jade amulet was glowing faintly. Chu Kuangren looked into the distance, knowing that the Qian Emperor Palace had reappeared. The unknown lands must have made their move long ago. Looks like I'll have to join in the fun as well. Chu Kuangren held the jade amulet in his hand and said. Before he left, he called Elder Ruyan over. Ruyan, I've set up a large formation in the Black Heaven sect. I'll pass you the method to activate it. If anyone from the Black Heaven sect comes to invade and you guys can't handle it, just activate it, Chu Kuangren said. He did not want his home to be invaded while he was away. Elder Ruyan nodded. All right. She was quite surprised. This sect leader knows how to set up formations? However, Chu Kuangren knew quite a few things. Now that he knew how to set up a formation, It was not something that Elder Ruyin could not accept. However, the Black Heaven sect already had a mountain guarding formation, and it was an extremely rare sage-grade formation. Could the formation that Chu Kuangren had set up be more powerful than a sage-grade formation? Elder Ruyin was doubtful. Chu Kuangren passed the method to activate the formation to Elder Ruyin. After some thought, he said, "How about this? I'll demonstrate it to you first." Chu Kuangren took out a stone tablet that was carved with celestial chalcedony. It was as clear as jade, and it was the key to activate the formation. There were markings on the stone tablet. They were the major nodes of the astonishing cloud of seas formation. He channeled his spiritual thoughts into the stone tablet. Soon, the nodes of the astonishing cloud of seas formation lit up, and the entire Black Heaven sect shook. Clouds and mist appeared out of thin air and enveloped the entire Black Heaven sect. Countless Taoist rhymes circulated like a soaring dragon in the sea of clouds. Elder Ruyin was a little dumbfounded. Just by looking at it, she could already tell that this formation was extraordinary. Through the stone tablet, she could see some of the stages of the astonishing cloud of seas formation. It was either a trap or a kill. It was extremely mysterious. This formation was not as simple as a sage-grade formation. Was this really set up by the sect leader? It was too powerful. With this formation, the Black Heaven sect will be even more secure. Elder Ruyin said excitedly. Others might not know, but she had been helping Chu Kuangren with the sect's internal affairs, so she knew quite a lot about the unknown lands. She knew very well what kind of situation Chu Kuangren and the Black Heaven sect were in, and with the help of this formation, she felt much more at ease. "I'll leave the array to you. I'll leave first." "Take care, sect master." In a flash, Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and left. At this time, there was a sea of people outside the glorious Qian Imperial Palace. Surrounding the Qian Imperial Palace was a mysterious sealing power that enveloped the entire Qian Imperial Palace like a large net. But at this moment, the net was collapsing on its own. This sealing power should have been left behind by the Qian Emperor. The Qian Emperor must have calculated this timing to allow the Imperial Palace to appear. As such, this sealing power would naturally be useless. The saint said, "This person came from the unknown lands." He looked at the Arch Palace with a fanatical look in his eyes. An emperor's opportunity of fortune. This can be said to be the greatest and most unimaginable opportunity of fortune in the recent 150,000 years. Whoever obtains the Arch Palace will definitely have a meteoric rise. The sealing net gradually disappeared. The moment the net disappeared, a few sages flew towards the Imperial Palace, but they were repelled by an invisible barrier. What's going on? Didn't the sealing power disappear? The sages were a little surprised. At this time, a few golden words appeared in the void. Anyone below the sage level can enter. What does this mean? Sages can't enter? What kind of stupid rule is this? F***CK, are we going to come here for nothing? Some of the sages were very unwilling. They had been sages for many years, and now they were looking forward to becoming emperors. Although they knew that the emperor's opportunity of fortune was not in their generation, how could they give it up so easily when the unprecedented emperor's opportunity of fortune was right in front of them? "I don't care. I must obtain this emperor's opportunity of fortune," one of the sages said unwillingly. His body surged with powerful sage Taoist rhymes as he charged towards the Qian Imperial Palace. However, the harder he tried, the stronger the invisible barrier became. It violently repelled him and smashed him onto the ground. That scene left everyone speechless. To many, a sage was already the pinnacle of powerhouses. However, a barrier left behind by an emperor from hundreds of thousands of years ago was enough to make a sage suffer. An emperor was truly unimaginable. It's useless. The Qian Imperial Palace's intention is very clear. His inheritance will only be left for future generations of sky prides. One of the sages said faintly. He then looked at the sky prides from various major forces with a hint of envy in his eyes. They could only say that they were born in the wrong era. "Shuizheng, you must be careful when you enter the Imperial Palace this time. You must take good care of that jade amulet. It will be very useful in the imperial palace, the ethereal rapture sage reminded Shuizheng. Yes. Shuizheng nodded solemnly. The other forces were also giving their sky prides their advice. In Acheron Manor's camp. Wu Dao, although you lost your jade amulet, the imperial palace's opportunity of fortune is still here. Once you're inside, act according to the situation. Remember, don't act impulsively again, Black Willow Sage said to Yuan Wudao. Yes. Yuan Wudao nodded. His current state was a little strange. Chu Kuangren had chopped off one of his arms in the demonic hoarder forefather's secret realm, but now he had a new arm. However, his new arm was wrapped in bandages and emanated an ominous aura. The group of sky prides entered the Qian Imperial Palace one after another. Among them, the Empyrean walkers were the most eye-catching. To many, the biggest opportunity of fortune in the Imperial Palace would most likely be obtained by one of the Empyrean walkers. After all, no matter how powerful the sky prides from the other orthodoxies were, they could at most fight against honorables and supreme honorables. However, these Empyrean walkers could fight against sages. They were no longer sky prides of the same level. The reappearance of the Qian Imperial Palace proves that our previous guess is correct. The emperors have indeed left behind all kinds of opportunities of fortune. Some of the unknown lands' sages gathered together. One of the sages said. The other sages' eyes lit up when they heard that. Looks like the act of burning the books and hiding the emperors was not in vain. Now that we're the only ones who have the records of the emperors, it'll be a great help in the fight for the emperor's opportunity of fortune in the future. That's right. Now it all depends on the sky pride's luck. The biggest opportunity of fortune in the Qian Imperial Palace belongs to the Heavenly Golden Palace. Suddenly, a voice rang out. An old man walked over with a majestic gait. The Empyrean walkers of the Heavenly Golden Palace aren't weak, but our Empyrean walkers aren't to be trifled with. Oh, are you that confident, Purple Void Sage? If the Heavenly Golden Imperial physique fails in the Imperial Palace, don't turn on me. The sages looked displeased when they saw the old man. Let's wait and see. Purple Void Sage's face was filled with pride. He had great confidence in Shaolin Tian. Below the level of sages, there were not many Empyrean walkers who could stand up to him. Look at him. At this moment, there was a commotion from the crowd. Outside the Imperial Palace, a person was walking through the air. He was dressed in a wide-sleeved white robe with a beautiful ancient sword hanging from his waist. He had a celestial appearance and a charming demeanor. Many of the sages narrowed their eyes when they saw this person. Chapter 392. Chu Kuangren stepped through the air and arrived. He was dressed in a wide-sleeved white robe and his black hair cascaded down like a waterfall. The pupils of everyone couldn't help but constrict when they saw him. Chu Kuangren is here. Damn it, this Qian Imperial Palace, he also wants to join in the fun. If he goes in, what chance does the others have? Play my ass. There's no way to play. Everyone discussed in low voices. To everyone, Chu Kuangren was no longer on the same level as the other sky prides. There was no comparison between the two of them. If he were to enter the Imperial Palace, he would be able to sweep everyone. *, we must not let him in. Otherwise, with Chu Kuangren's abilities, this emperor's opportunity of fortune might very well be taken by him. The saints of the unknown lands looked at each other. One of the sages stood in front of Chu Kuangren and smiled. I didn't expect Brother Chu to join in the fun. Chu Kuangren glared at him. Get out of my way. The sage still had no intention of giving way. He only smiled and said, Brother Chu, you're in charge of an orthodoxy, and you're the sect master of an orthodoxy. It's not very nice for you to fight with a bunch of juniors. Junior? Heh, I have to hand it to you. You're a sage, but you don't even think before you speak. Come to think of it, I'm of the same generation as them. Of course, my status is higher than theirs, but my age is about the same. Chu Kuangren sneered. When they were beating him up, they didn't remember that he was a junior. Now that they were stopping him from entering the Emperor Palace, They remembered it. Chu Kuangren, are you really going in? The opportunity is right in front of me. It would be a waste not to take it. Whoosh, 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 one by one, the sages rushed over and blocked Chu Kuangren's way. It was obvious that they did not want him to enter the imperial palace. Heh, I told you guys that you guys are shameless, but you guys have really thrown away your pride. Chu Kuangren chuckled. In any case, I can't let you enter the Qian imperial palace. Do you think you can stop me? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Taking a step forward, a terrifying Taoist rhyme swept out in all directions. Raising a hand, boundless spiritual energy gathered, and a vast Buddhist light manifested. The thousand-zhang tall ancient Buddha struck out with a palm. His first move was an emperor method. Facing this powerful attack, a saint's expression changed slightly, and he also punched out, but he was sent flying by this palm. F***ck, why does it seem like this guy's strength has increased again? The sage's expression changed slightly. Just one palm attack from Chu Kuangren and he could already feel his arm going numb. Chu Kuangren's strength was a little too terrifying. Don't tell me this guy is preparing to undergo the heavenly tribulation. I remember that it hasn't been long since he broke through to the utmost exalt realm. To think that he's going through his tribulation so soon. Isn't his rate of improvement a little too fast? If he were to become a saint, wouldn't that be disastrous? The surrounding sages were discussing. Chu Kuangren did not care. He looked around at the sages surrounding him and activated the Eye of Revelation to see through their identities and cultivation levels. They were all people from the unknown lands. Only they would think of stopping Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was the biggest obstacle in their orthodoxy's fight for the emperor's opportunity. A sincere suggestion. Let's go together, Chu Kuangren said as he placed his hand on the hilt of his sword. The sages looked at each other. I don't think any of you can stop him. Why don't you come at him together? There's no need to care about face at this time. Black Willow Saint from Acheron Manor said. Hearing his words, the rest of the sages also nodded. Indeed, even a great sage would not be able to easily stop an opponent of Chu Kuangren's level. If they wanted to stop him from entering the imperial palace, they would have to go at him together. I can't believe that at such an old age, I have to join a bunch of sages to stop a junior, one of the sages said with a bitter smile. The others felt helpless too. The Qian Imperial Palace was originally prepared for the Sky Prides, so it was reasonable for them to enter and fight for it. However, Chu Kuangren was different. His strength was too strong and terrifying. If he entered, the other Sky Prides would not stand a chance. Hence, the sages had no choice but to join forces to stop him. Let's go! Black Willow Saint was the first to attack. He unleashed a palm attack, and his spiritual power surged to form a black skull. The air was suddenly filled with a deathly chill. Finger of Despair. A sage from the sacred palace of death also attacked. His finger attack was an emperor technique. The rest of the sages followed suit. Chu Kuangren unsheathed his descendant self-sword and activated his three great Taoist physiques. His ferocious qi, battle intent, and transcendental might erupted. A dazzling sword ray tore through the sky and earth. Several surges of energy collided. The violent energy formed a horrifying shockwave that spread. The shockwave hit everyone, and even Chu Kuangren was pushed back a few meters. Suddenly he looked up into the sky. He saw a huge seal of mountains and rivers descending from the sky. That seal contained an incomparably majestic earth qi. It was the immovable Manor's emperor technique, the seal of mountains and rivers. Suppress him! High up in the sky, an old man roared. Chu Kuangren's ferocious qi swirled around his body and formed into a huge black avatar. Waves of battle roars echoed in the sky. The divine ferocious avatar smashed its fists into the sky. Terrifying ferocious qi surged out like a tidal wave, shaking the void. With a loud explosion, the seal of mountains and rivers was shattered. However, the other sages had already unleashed their attacks. Chu Kuangren controlled the divine ferocious avatar and continuously waved its fists in the air, unleashing surges of fist energies in all directions. The void exploded as all sorts of Taoist rhymes intertwined and collided. In the end, the divine ferocious avatar could no longer withstand the sage's attacks and shattered. Chu Kuangren himself was once again pushed back. Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and dashed towards the imperial palace. Dream on. You want to break through our seal? Dream on. A few sages snorted and stopped Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren's speed was fast, but there were many sages who were proficient in speed as well, so they were not any slower than him. Boom, boom, sounds of explosions could be heard in the void. Chu Kuangren continued to wander in the void as if he was trying to find a way to enter the imperial palace. Unfortunately, the unknown land's sages' defense was impenetrable. They did not give Chu Kuangren the chance to do so. After a series of intense battles, Chu Kuangren still could not break through. It's too difficult. There are more than 10 sages here, and some of them are even great sages. The rest are almost at the great sage level. It won't be easy for Chu Kuangren to break through their seal. That's right. Who else can break through unless they're a sage ruler? It's rare to see more than 10 sages teaming up against a sage. Chu Kuangren, you're amazing. I'm afraid the opportunity of fortune in the imperial palace doesn't belong to Chu Kuangren anymore. What a shame. If he could enter the imperial palace, the other sky prides, including the Empyrean walkers from the unknown lands, wouldn't stand a chance. The battle continued in the void. Chu Kuangren was surrounded by more than 10 sages, and he could not break through and enter the Qian imperial palace for a long time. Chu Kuangren, even you can't break through our seal and enter the Qian imperial palace. Just give up. One of the ethereal rapture's sages laughed. Chapter 393. The ethereal rapture sage had a terrible impression of Chu Kuangren. Back then, he had taken away so many exquisite chalcedonies and even celestial cores that they could not wait to devour. The ethereal rapture sage was elated to see Chu Kuangren suffer. However, he was soon disappointed. That was because even in such a situation, he did not see the slightest hint of annoyance or displeasure on Chu Kuangren's face. That flawless face of his had always been calm. If one were to look closely, one could even see that the corner of Chu Kuangren's mouth was curled up into a nonchalant smile. This B** starred. The ethereal rapture sage was soon in a bad mood. Not only him, but the other sages also felt like they had punched a pile of cotton. They could not even feel the slightest bit of force. They clearly had the upper hand and successfully stopped Chu Kuangren from entering the imperial palace, but why did they feel like they were the ones at a disadvantage? When they looked at the surrounding cultivators' strange gazes, that feeling of frustration became even more obvious. They seemed to have understood something from the crowd's gazes. A dozen sages ganged up on a junior, yet they still had the gall to be proud? A dozen sages ganged up on a junior, yet they could not even hurt a hair on him. How could they call themselves sages? It doesn't matter. As long as we can stop Chu Kuangren from entering the imperial palace, we don't have to worry about anything else. Black Willow Sage said. As a demonic orthodoxy sage, his skin was much thicker than the other sages. He did not feel guilty at all about joining forces with the other sages to attack Chu Kuangren. Hey, didn't you guys notice anything? Chu Kuangren suddenly said. Hearing his words, everyone frowned. They did not know what he meant by that. Chu Kuangren shook his head when he saw their puzzled expressions. Then he snapped his fingers. In an instant, a strange fluctuation appeared in the void. This fluctuation caused the sages present to be alarmed as they looked around cautiously. What's going on? Why is there such a fluctuation? Suddenly, lines of mysterious runes appeared in the void. Some looked like swords, some looked like flames, and some looked like beasts. All kinds of runes glowed brilliantly, looking extremely mysterious. That scene shocked all the sages present. Runes, why are there so many runes? This guy, when did he carve these symbols? Bastard, how did he do it? The sages exclaimed in shock. They never knew that Chu Kuangren knew runic techniques. Speaking of which, how did this fellow know the rune Dao? The sages were puzzled. The hundreds of thousands of onlookers were even more confused. Everyone, enjoy this hodgepodge of runes. Chu Kuangren smiled. As soon as he finished speaking, the various runes engraved in the void suddenly exploded, and all kinds of energy rushed towards the sages. The power of fire, the power of ice, the power of sword, the power of gravity. For a moment, the entire sky was overflowing with colorful lights, gorgeous and dazzling. The sages did not know that Chu Kuangren also knew runic Tao, so they were caught off guard and had to deal with the various runes in a flurry. Goodbye. Chu Kuangren did not continue to fight with these sages. Instead, he took this opportunity to fly towards the imperial palace. Dream on. The sacred palace of Death's sage roared and pointed a finger at Chu Kuangren's back. A horrifying amount of death chi converged and turned into a terrifying finger strength. Finger of despair. However, Chu Kuangren dashed towards the imperial palace without looking back. Just when that finger strength was about to hit Chu Kuangren, a golden rune appeared in the air and turned into a golden light barrier. With a loud explosion, the finger strength shattered the light barrier, but it also dissipated. It could not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. The asterisk eminent. The sacred palace of Death's sage cursed. This B asterisk starred has even set up a route to enter the imperial palace. He even set up runes along the way to prevent others from pursuing him. D asterisk eminent. How does he know runic Tao? Runic Tao was very mysterious. There were only a few cultivators in the entire firmament star who could cultivate runic Tao to a high level. How could Chu Kuangren have such a high level of runic Tao at such a young age? The crowd was puzzled. However, they could only watch as Chu Kuangren entered the imperial palace. D asterisk eminent. What are the Sky Prides going to do now? The sages looked at each other. Compared to Chu Kuangren, the Sky Prides in the imperial palace were like a flock of sheep. Now that they were like a tiger in a flock of sheep, who could stop them? Sai, is this really fate? Is Chu Kuangren destined to become an emperor in this era? The Qian Imperial Palace. As the residence of an ancient emperor, this place had always been sealed in the void until today. Hence, the place did not look too shabby. On the contrary, it looked extremely glorious and majestic. Upon arriving at the imperial palace, Chu Kuangren immediately activated his treasure locating skill. All kinds of treasures and information were fed back to him. However, he frowned slightly. There are quite a lot of treasures, but most of them are sage-grade treasures. Compared to the serpent deity's collection, these things are not that valuable. They're not that useful to me either. Are there no emperor-grade treasures here? Chu Kuangren thought. An emperor-grade treasure was what he wanted the most. He then used his treasure locating skill to search for a while, but he still could not find any trace of an emperor-grade treasure. Vaguely, his treasure locating skill's senses touched a strange barrier and was bounced back. He looked towards the center of the imperial palace. Oh, is it over there? After pondering for a while, Chu Kuangren began to move. The barrier that he sensed was actually a layer of sealing energy. Perhaps it was not the right time yet, so the sealed area had not appeared yet. Let's loot the other treasures first. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Although these sage-grade treasures were not very useful to Chu Kuangren, they were still valuable cultivation resources. They would still be very useful to the Black Heaven sect. Inside the Qian Imperial Palace, a group of Sky Prides was gathered in a medicinal field. There were many supreme elixirs growing in this medicinal field. Even sage-grade supreme elixirs, which were extremely rare in the outside world, could be found here. Not to mention the other treasures in the Imperial Palace, just this medicinal field alone was enough to make 99% of the orthodoxies in Firmament Star go crazy. The Sky Prides at the scene stared at the supreme elixirs with fiery eyes. However, most of the Sky Prides did not dare to act rashly. That was because there were more than 10 Empyrean walkers gathered in the middle of the medicinal field. Just by standing there, they were enough to intimidate the crowd. What do you guys think about how we should distribute these supreme elixirs? Shui Zheng of the Ethereal Rapture asked. How else can we distribute them? Whoever has the biggest fist will get the most. Xiao Lintian of the Heavenly Golden Palace sneered. Among the Sky Prides present, he was the strongest. Therefore, he was the most confident. Brother Xiao, you're very courageous indeed. However, can you single-handedly take on all of us? Ling Xiao said calmly. As soon as he said that, the other Empyrean walkers looked at Xiao Lintian with hostility. Xiao Lintian frowned and snorted coldly. Bullying the weak with numbers? Is this how you do things? Ling Xiao said, this is called joining forces to attack the strong. Xiao Lintian snorted. Although he was not afraid of anyone at the scene in a one-on-one fight. However, it was still a difficult task to deal with so many Empyrean walkers at the same time. Chapter 394. Ling Zhao's alliance forced Xiao Lintian to give in. The group of Empyrean walkers began to discuss the ownership of the herb farm. However, no one was satisfied with the outcome even after a long debate. The herb farm was too valuable. No one was willing to let it go so easily. I've already said that I want half of it. You guys can split the rest. Otherwise, I'll fight you all at once. I don't know who's going to lose then. Xiao Lintian said domineeringly. The rest of the Empyrean walkers looked troubled when they heard that. Half is too much. I'm the strongest here, so I should get the most. Xiao Lintian said. His words caused everyone to be speechless. The strongest would obtain the most. There wasn't any problem with these words. Oh, so the strongest should get the most? At that moment, an indifferent voice drifted into everyone's ears. Of course. Xiao Lintian did not notice anything and subconsciously replied. However, his expression suddenly stiffened in the next instant. The other Empyrean walkers' expressions changed too. Cries of surprise rose and fell from the crowd as they looked behind them. A peerless young man in a white robe had arrived at the herb farm and was standing behind everyone. Chu Kuangren. Ling Xiao called out that person's name with a serious expression. The other Empyrean walkers also looked grim and bitter. Why is this guy here too? The sages from the outside world let him in just like that? Competing with him for the opportunity of fortune? They think too highly of us. The Empyrean walkers smiled bitterly, especially Xiao Lintian. His expression kept changing, and a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. Chu Kuangren had left a huge psychological scar on him during the battle at the Empyrean Peak. He, the heavenly golden imperial physique, was defeated by Chu Kuangren in one move. He still could not believe it. Chu Kuangren slowly walked towards the crowd of Empyrean walkers. The crowd consciously opened up a path for him. Everyone looked at that white robe with a complicated gaze. There was fear, yearning, and fanatical worship. However, most of them felt helpless. What are we fighting for now that he's here? Forget it. Let's just treat it as a vacation. This is too sad. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Chu Kuangren slowly walked to the front of the herb field and smiled. I think it makes sense that whoever is the strongest will get the most. Hence, I shall take all of this herb field. After that, he raised his hand to activate the interspatial ring in his hand. Large amounts of precious medicines were collected by him. The Empyrean walkers' expressions changed at that sight. One of them could not help but yell, Chu Kuangren, don't cross the line. However, Chu Kuangren completely ignored him. The Empyrean walker's expression darkened when he realized that he was being ignored. He then dashed towards Chu Kuangren in an attempt to stop him. However, Chu Kuangren gently waved his hand. A surge of Taoist rhymes suddenly erupted, gathering the energy of the earth and transforming it into a divine mountain that smashed onto the body of the world walker. Despite being an Empyrean walker, he did not stand a chance against Chu Kuangren's attack and was sent flying on the spot. Chu Kuangren, do you really want to monopolize this herb farm? Don't go too far. Xiao Lintian couldn't help but question. Chu Kuangren looked at him and said, didn't you say that whoever is the strongest will get the most? Why, do you have a problem with that? Xiao Lintian choked on his words and was speechless. Yes, he was the one who said that. It was not a problem for whoever was the strongest to get the most. However, Chu Kuangren had King taken away all the precious medicines. Ling Xiao, let's attack together. Xiao Lintian secretly transmitted a message to Ling Xiao and the others. He signaled him with his eyes. It's time for you to unleash your strategy of teaming up. However, Ling Xiao silently took a step back. Teaming up? That would only work if there was a chance of winning. With just the few of us, how can we fight against Chu Kuangren? I'm afraid we'll be taken out in one go. A minute. Xiao Lintian could not help but curse when he saw Ling Xiao retreating. He stared at Chu Kuangren with dissatisfaction in his eyes. He looked at the others. However, none of them were willing to step forward. They were well aware of Chu Kuangren's strength, and some of them who had not fought him before could guess his strength after witnessing Ling Xiao and the others' reactions. Hence, they did not dare to step forward. What, do you want to fight? Chu Kuangren said playfully. Minute Chu Kuangren, don't be too arrogant. Xiao Lintian said coldly, feeling extremely frustrated. He had always been the one being arrogant, but ever since he met Chu Kuangren, he had been humiliated time and time again. Initially, it was others who said the same thing to him, but now he was using it to criticize others. That feeling made him extremely dissatisfied. Get to the point. Are you going to fight or not? Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold as he yelled. His battle intent soared as he yelled. All the Empyrean walkers at the scene were shocked and took a few steps back. Xiao Lintian could not help but shudder. Being stared at by Chu Kuangren, Xiao Lintian felt a chill rise from the soles of his feet all the way to the top of his head. No, we're not fighting, Xiao Lintian gritted his teeth and said with a slightly trembling voice. The other Empyrean walkers looked at Xiao Lintian with pity. He was the heavenly golden imperial physique, one of the strongest among the Empyrean walkers. However, he did not even have the courage to fight Chu Kuangren. That was just too ironic. If you don't want to fight, then what are you talking about? Chu Kuangren curled his lips and retracted his battle intent. Being said like this by him, Xiao Lintian could not refute a single word. Ling Xiao and the others felt even more pity for him. Sai, you know you can't afford to offend Chu Kuangren, but you still insist on provoking him. Isn't that just asking for trouble? The almighty heavenly golden imperial physique is just short of being pointed at and scolded, yet you don't even dare to move. Who would believe you? The crowd of Empyrean walkers was amazed. Soon, Chu Kuangren stored all the supreme elixirs into his yin and yang ring and took them away. Farewell, everyone. Before he left, Chu Kuangren even bid farewell to the crowd. The crowd forced a smile on their faces. Minute. Farewell my asteriscus, it's best if we don't meet again. After parting ways with Chu Kuangren, the crowd continued to explore the imperial palace. As the residence of an emperor, the emperor seemed to have intentionally left behind many opportunities of fortune here. Soon, the crowd found a new opportunity of fortune. It was a gigantic stone tablet. On the stone tablet, mysterious patterns were engraved that interweaved into a picture. In the picture, there was a person howling at the sky and swinging his fist. A terrifying Taoist rhyme circulated within it. There were also a few lines of small words on the stone tablet. Strike the stone tablet with the technique in the tablet to obtain the opportunity of fortune. The crowd's eyes lit up when they saw that. The meaning of this stone stele is for us to comprehend the cultivation technique recorded within it. Then we can use this cultivation technique to obtain the opportunities within the stone stele. The technique recorded on the stone tablet seems to be some kind of fist technique. Fist techniques are my forte. This opportunity of fortune is mine. It's still unknown who will understand it first. The crowd sat in front of the stone tablet and began to understand it. Then, they realized that the cultivation technique recorded on the stone tablet was very mysterious. It was even more obscure than most sage ruler techniques. I'm afraid this is a boundary emperor technique. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, Yes, it is indeed a boundary emperor technique. At that moment, a voice rang in Ling Xiao's ears. His face froze when he heard that voice, and he turned around helplessly. Brother Chu, why are you here again? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.